Released in 2005, written by Brian Michael Bendis, with art by Mark Bagley. This is Ultimate Spider-Man: Warriors. The book begins right at the tail end of the much-lauded summer vacation, according to my headcanon. Rolling to an end of those hot, heated months in New York City, the mob boss Silvermane watches a news report on the year-and-a-half-long, still ongoing legal case against Wilson Fisk. Silvermane is joined by a shadowy figure, and they watch earlier reports of the federal indictment against some of Fisk's top men. The news then notes that Wilson Fisk is still wanted by the authorities, but he's eluded arrest through various legal loopholes. Silvermane turns off the TiVo recording of the news and turns to the man in his office and notes that it's officially time to stop waiting and start acting against Fisk's crumbling empire. Silvermane suggests that now that the mystery man is back in town, and Silvermane gets up and says that the two should just forget their past squabbles and work on this together. And Hammerhead adjusts his coat and says that he likes everything about the plan except for one aspect. Then he grabs Silvermane by the head and snaps his neck. He's not coming back as a little RC car or a robot body in this universe. He's gone. A few weeks later, Midtown High School has once again begun. Gee, I bet this will be a nice, calm year, especially for incoming junior Peter Parker. Oh yeah, and he and MJ are still not really on speaking terms since they broke up several months ago. After school, Spider-Man swings through the city, lamenting that Spider-Man has not been the problem. Peter Parker has been the problem. Spider-Man has done everything. He saves the day. He helps people. He keeps people safe. Peter Parker, on the other hand, has liabilities. There's people that could get hurt because of him. He has to worry about school and all that other junk. So Peter determines that his civilian life isn't as important as his superhero life. In his penthouse, Kingpin speaks with his right-hand man, Mr. Dini, about the Silvermane situation. Dini says that all that they have found out since it happened was that his neck was snapped and he's dead. Kingpin chastises him for failing to find any information about the comings and goings of an expensive, high-rise apartment in the middle of New York City. Then he orders Electro to be brought in. Wait, what? Oh. Then he orders Elektra to be brought in. Dini tells him that they definitely don't need to bring a hired assassin in on this, especially since Wilson Fisk is still under federal investigation. But Fisk tells him again to get Elektra because he needs to make sure that his rivals know to be afraid of him. And that night at a warehouse at the docks, Fisk's men work on unloading a smuggling operation that is situated within TiVo boxes. What the fuck is with Bendis or Bagley's obsession with TiVo? Was it just because it was a new thing? Like, why is it brought up so much? Anyway, Hammerhead shows up with the Enforcers. Hammerhead explains that Fisk has abandoned them all, left them to fend for themselves, and then one of Fisk's guys named Reggie steps forward because he used to work alongside Hammerhead. Reggie says that he thought Hammerhead died over a year ago, and Hammerhead explains that he did, it sucked, and he decided to come back. And that is actually a reference to a couple of issues of Ultimate X-Men, where Hammerhead appeared very briefly. I don't remember if I covered these in, I think, Ultimate X-Men Volume 3. I might have brought it up, but I don't know if I went into detail. Hammerhead was a goon that was hired to, like, kill a guy and kidnap his daughter or something like that. Whatever. They kidnap this girl. Gambit comes across him out in the streets of New York, and he fights through the streets in the subway, I think, and whatever, to save this young girl. And he eventually catches up to him, and Gambit uses his powers to, like, charge kinetically Hammerhead's skull implants and fucking blows up part of his head. The Fisk goons, the Foons, hold Hammer at gunpoint as he explains that they are in desperate need of leadership, but the ringleader fires his handgun point blank and Hammerhead falls to the floor. And he picks himself back up, pries the bullet out of his flesh, and orders the Enforcers to do their goddamn job. Fancy Dan guns down the guy, and the other Foons watch on in silence. Hammerhead then tells them that they can either leave the city and never come back, or come with him. Several Foons run away into the night, but a good amount stay, and then Hammerhead orders the building to be destroyed. Not long after, Spider-Man sees an explosion down at the docks and a massive fire. He arrives to find a smoldering ruin of what was once a warehouse. He lands and calls out if anybody's trapped, hears nothing, then glances up at the roof and sees a silhouetted figure watching him. He swings up and finds Nothing. Then he's struck in the back of the neck before he can react to his spider sense, and Moon Knight kicks his face, slams his head into the ground, and demands to know why Spider-Man destroyed that warehouse. Moon Knight strangles Spidey like a fucking lunatic as the warehouse continues to burn. Spidey tells him that he didn't do it, and then flings Moon Knight off of him. Moon Knight tosses his crescent darts, and Spidey easily dodges them, and he faces off against the white-clad Crusader as Elektra watches from a nearby rooftop, and she radios in what she's watching to Kingpin. Spidey escapes Moon Knight and then leaps off of the roof and swings away. The next day, the Daily Bugle runs "The Moon Man Cometh" article. Jonah is annoyed that they didn't go with his idea, "Moon Man terrorizes Big Apple." But Robbie points out that he didn't actually do anything. Ben Urich shows up and explains that he did some digging, and after going through quite the rabbit hole of dummy corporations and subsidiaries, he found that the warehouse was owned by Fisk Enterprises. Jonah and Ben celebrate the scoop when Peter walks in with some papers, and Jonah orders Ben to get on the article immediately. Then Peter notes that he's heard kids say that the guy is actually named Moon Knight. But Jonah thinks Moon Man is funnier and tells Peter to get out of his office. At his little cubicle, Peter gets a call from Aunt May demanding to know why he skipped school today. Peter slumps and tells her that he just didn't feel like going, and May tells him that they've talked about this. Peter lies and says that he actually just went to the library and then got lunch in town before going to the Bugle. And she asks if this is about MJ. Peter says it kind of is. She tells him that they'll talk about this when she gets home tonight, and then she says goodbye and hangs up the phone and worries that Peter is running away from his life, just like his father. Across the office, Ben Urich contacts Fisk Enterprises to speak to Mr. Fisk. Obviously, it doesn't go anywhere, but Peter does overhear him. Later that night, as the sun sets, Spidey climbs Fisk Tower. He reaches the helipad when the door opens and Elektra appears. She informs him that Mr. Fisk would like to speak with him and then invites him inside. Spidey is then led into Fisk's massive dining room, where he has delicious DeFalco Pizzeria pizza pie.
Oh, there he is. Have some pizza with me. Let's talk like men.
How did you know I was coming?
Oh, I installed cameras on the roof because of you. My men informed me that you were on your way up. I've been looking forward to an opportunity to talk in a less hostile environment. Here, sit, eat. I own the parlor. Bought it after I tasted the first slice, actually. It is the best in New York. And I know a lot of people claim that, but...
What do you want to talk about?
Why do you think they hate you?
Who, you?
People. The people that you risk your life for every day. Why do you think they hate you?
The costume? Oh, wait, no, I know. It's because I run a criminal empire, cloak it in charity work, and quote-unquote legitimate businesses, try to sell myself as something I'm not. Oh, no, wait, that's you.
No. Society hates you because they don't want your help. You remind them that they are weak-willed and unspecial. They don't want heroes. Because if there are special people and they aren't one of them, well, who wants that?
Thing is, that's not true, and if it is, I guess I don't care.
That's sweet. The difference between you and I is that you really are just a child. You benefit from the wide-eyed optimism of youth. I do envy you for that, somewhat. But like many of your decisions, it's just naive. And I do not envy that harsh, cold slap of reality when it will come your way soon enough.
What do you want from me, Willie?
This is a man called Hammerhead.
Oh yeah? Why do they call him that?
There really is no off switch for your obnoxious machine, is there?
Kingpin goes on to explain that Hammerhead is the man who killed Silvermane a couple weeks ago and blew up his warehouse last night. He continues that Hammerhead is making a play for the territory that Fisk runs. And that's not good, because while Fisk is a bad guy, he knows how to control himself and appear in proper company, you know? He knows how to run things. Hammerhead, as we've seen, has extreme antisocial behaviors. He tells Spidey that Hammerhead is who he should be focusing his extracurricular costume activities on, not him, a guy who's pretty much under house arrest. Spidey's skeptical and proclaims that he refuses to even consider helping the Kingpin. But Kingpin continues and says that if Spider-Man really believes in protecting innocent people, he'll stop Hammerhead, and then he provides him his address. A few days later, Jesus Christ, Bendis, what is this? This is all to say that Peter is conflicted on what he should do with the information that Kingpin gave him. Because now, after he's had some time to actually ruminate on it and think it over, he actually doesn't know if Kingpin is right. And he's thinking he might be. Later that day at the police station, Captain Jean DeWolf meets Spider-Man on the rooftop, and he informs her about his meeting with the Kingpin, and that he could really use her advice about what to do. She tells him about Hammerhead and the rumor that he was a mutant, but there was also a rumor that he died. Spidey says he's not too sure about at least one of those things. She asks if Kingpin gave Spidey money to take care of Hammerhead, and Spidey gets offended at the idea as she paces around thinking. Then she tells him that, while she hates to say this, Kingpin is right. Spidey should go after Hammerhead, because the way the system has slowed to a crawl on Fisk, it'll be even harder to get Hammerhead unless he's caught red-handed. Spidey is in disbelief, and then she gets a call about a disturbance in Chinatown and has to leave. Cut to Chinatown. 7 minutes prior. Danny Rand meets with his old friend Shang-Chi after Danny was released from jail. Then they went and got lunch, and Shang caught Danny up on everything that he's missed since he got locked away for killing a man with his iron fist. And that's when Hammerhead and Chinatown's gangs arrived. The leader pointed out Shang-Chi is the guy causing problems and messing with their dope operations, so Hammerhead just shoots Shang-Chi in the chest. But Shang-Chi catches the bullet mid-air, and Hammerhead is tossed out of the shop window and offers 50 grand to whoever kills Shang-Chi. Danny and Chi fight throughout the restaurant as Spidey arrives outside and punches Hammerhead in his hammerhead. Spidey then screams in pain and thinks that he's broken his fucking hand. Hammerhead snatches him and aims a gun right at his temple. But before he can pull the trigger, Black Cat appears. What a menagerie of characters! Isn't this delightful? And meanwhile, at Midtown, the teacher does attendance and finds that Peter Parker is once again absent. And Mary Jane's worries about Peter get worse and worse. Anyway, Black Cat tells Hammerhead to knock off his bullshit, and Hammerhead tells her to piss off. And then he pulls the trigger, but the handgun explodes because Spidey webbed up the barrel and his hand. Hammerhead cries out in pain, and then he pulls a fucking grenade out of his coat and lobs it at Black Cat and Spidey. They leap out of the way as a car detonates from the explosion and land atop one another on a nearby rooftop. Spidey asks what the hell happened, because he thought she died like a year ago. Then he gets up and races to the edge of the roof and finds a view of destruction and lack of Hammerhead. The cops arrive to the scene and then open fire on him until DeWolf shows up and tells him to knock that shit off and arrest the actual gang members that are still hanging around. And then she calls out an APB on Hammerhead. And just down the road, a cab driver named Stephen Grant films the scene, specifically Jean, and then hightails it out of there. Back on the roof, Black Cat can't keep herself down as she climbs all over Spidey, kissing him through the mask. And Spidey, no doubt, has a very obvious giveaway that he's into this. She begins to lift the mask when Spidey pushes her away and adjusts his leggings, probably turns 45 degrees away from her. Maybe he wears a cup. He might wear a cup. He probably wears a cup. But even then, that's not going to be comfortable. Anyway, he asks how the hell Felicia is still alive after Elektra fucking stabbed her through the chest and she fell off a roof. She adjusts her skin-tight latex suit and tells him that cats just have 9 lives. Then she comes on to him yet again, and Spidey exclaims that this is all too much, there's too much going on, too many people he needs to keep track of. It's like he's living in a comic book. She steps back and explains that she's been doing some recon on Hammerhead and is still looking for vengeance against Kingpin for killing her dad. And she's hoping she can use Hammerhead to her advantage. Spidey chastises her for siding with him, but Felicia says she doesn't care what Hammerhead does, as long as Kingpin's dead in the ground in a very, very large hole. Then Spidey realizes it's getting late and that he has to get home and swings away, and Felicia laments that he must be married. Unfortunately not. Peter arrives back at home before Aunt May does and goes over all the crazy shit that happened today in his head, especially the Black Cat stuff. Then he hears Aunt May pull up and quickly changes his clothes. He heads downstairs and greets her, and she tells him that he smells like perfume, dirt, and soot. Then she says to get a to-go menu that they have in the kitchen and figure out what he wants for dinner and then hit the shower. In the kitchen, Peter notices a message on their home phone. from his principal about Peter skipping school yet again, and he quickly deletes it. Later, as the moon rises high in the night over Fisk Tower, Kingpin and Dini watch a recap of the day's news regarding the attack in Chinatown. And one of those interviewed notes that the gangs used to be under control when Kingpin was in charge. But now there's no one keeping them in line. And Dini freaks out and quickly apologizes for this very public embarrassment. Then Elektra stabs her sai through his chest, and Kingpin orders her to dispose of Dini's body, kill Hammerhead, then Moon Knight, then Spider-Man. 2 weeks later, at the Tokyo Club, a gang waits to meet with Hammerhead when Elektra kicks down the door in a brand new, somehow worse outfit and fucking brutalizes him. And meanwhile, we get a look into Bendis' idea for Moon Knight. We enter Mark Spector's mind to find Mark, Steven, and a little red-headed girl who's like his inner child, I guess. They argue over what they should do about the Kingpin Hammerhead situation. Mark is way too focused on Spider-Man, and Steven retorts that Spider-Man is just a meaningless obstacle in their crusade. And the two start arguing again until Red interrupts that he is here. And a massive Moon Knight appears and orders them all to be quiet because it's time to get to work. And in the real world, Mark Spector snaps out of it and comes to focus in the board meeting that he's in and excuses himself from the table and tells everybody to take a break for lunch. Then he heads to his office and opens a secret compartment containing the Moon Knight equipment. And at Midtown High School, Peter Parker eats his lunch alone, fantasizing about Black Cat. Then MJ walks up to him. She asks why they aren't friends anymore. Peter tells her that they are. And then she asks why he'd rather eat lunch alone and shut her out. And the fact that he's barely spoken a word to her since school started back up and their entire summer was pretty much radio silence doesn't make her feel like she's really his friend. Then she jokes that she almost didn't recognize him outside of the costume, and Peter tells her that he doesn't want to talk about that here. Without thinking, she asks if he's done being broken up with her, and Peter gets defensive and tells her that they both know why they cannot get back together. And there is actual danger in his life, and she'll be caught in it. And it'll never go away for as long as he's alive. He says that he didn't want to have this conversation again, especially not in detail, and especially not in the cafeteria. That's why he's been keeping himself away from her. MJ then begins to cry and tells Peter that she loves him, but he decided to wall himself away from everyone. Peter angrily tells her that one of their friends is dead because of him, and it could have just as easily been Mary. MJ says that she's not arguing his point, she just knows that they both love each other. And Peter remains silent, and MJ snaps that he's spending more time in the costume than he is as Peter Parker, and he cannot possibly keep going through life like this. Peter collects his things, marches off, and Liz comes up and comforts MJ. Later that day, after work at the Bugle, Spider-Man arrives to the address that Kingpin gave him. And he watches as a stretch Hummer pulls up and Hammerhead emerges with his bodyguards, and they begin to head inside. Then Black Cat covers his eyes and scares the hell out of him. She asks how she was able to sneak up on him, and Peter ignores the question, and then she explains that she was tracking down Hammerhead as well. And then she asks him not to get involved in this, for his own good. She tells him just to wait until Hammerhead has taken down Kingpin, and then act. But Spidey refuses, and Black Cat jokes that they're finally having their first fight. Then gunshots rattle through the neighborhood, and the two crash into the building's skylight to find Hammerhead, the Enforcers, Elektra, Moon Knight, Shang-Chi, Iron Fist, and a lot of goons, some dead, some alive.
Ah, come on, you guys never did this to Wilson Fisk.
Who's the good guys and who's the bad guys?
I'm not sure.
You crazies all here as a group, or you here with individual concerns?
Oh, well, I thought this was the line for the producers.
Alright, Elektra, right? How much Kingpin paying you?
More than you have.
Hey, I screw you over, I'm sure you'll find a great way to stab me for it later. Now, any of you other idiots want to rethink the intrusion into my personal life?
Excuse me, Mr. Hammerhead, sir. I'm Black Cat.
Oy vey.
I was actually here to get Spider-Man to stop going after you.
Yeah, why's that?
'Cause I want you to take down the Kingpin. In fact, I bet I want it even more than you do.
Alright, this is your audition.
Are you serious?
I'm sorry, sweetie, but it's just business.
And just like that, I turned the room around. So I once again ask if any of you idiots feel like running and screaming, 'cause now's the time.
I gotta get new friends. You people need a hobby and serious medication. You're all nuts! You know that? And this is coming from a guy in red and blue underwear. Give me that. Yeah, hi, can you, put me through to Captain Jean DeWolf? It's urgent.
Oh, I got no patience for you.
Shh, I'm on the phone. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Well, it's hard to say, but we kinda had a superpowered gang war thing going on, and can you just put me through to Captain Jean DeWolf, please? This is Spider-Man. Yeah, no, actually Spider-Man, yeah. Well, I'm kind of in a jam here, so... He's a fan. Look, thank you so much, but I just really need to get Captain Jean DeWolf on the line. Can you... Thank you. Oh, finally, somebody who likes me. As Spidey is waiting, Shang-Chi, who Spider-Man actually worked with very briefly in one of the Ultimate Marvel team-up issues, asks him to let him go because Spidey knows him, and he knows he's a good guy. But Spidey says that everyone just needs to stay webbed right now. Then Moon Knight gets very angry as Jean DeWolf finally picks up her phone and Spidey tells her to get here ASAP. And Elektra escapes and launches a sigh at him, followed by some ninja stars. Black Cat rips her way out with her claws and Moon Knight with his crescent darts. Elektra slams Spidey away and tries to kill him as Hammerhead slowly escapes the webbing and the police arrive outside. Hammerhead is clocked by Spidey and Moon Knight is fucking stabbed through the chest by Elektra. Spidey tackles her as Moon Knight collapses over. Hammerhead grabs him, rips off his mask, snaps a photo of his face on his cell phone. Then he mumbles through the webbing that he owns him now. Spider-Man gets his spider ass kicked and is launched out of the window onto a cruiser. Elektra works to free her new boss as Hammerhead tells her that their arrangement is not going to work because he needs to get the hell out of the country and he prepares to get rid of some witnesses. Then she stabs him through the chest too. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As Jean DeWolf shows up, Hammerhead is launched out of another window. Spidey webs him up to soften the landing, but I doubt it's gonna do much to help him. As Elektra tries to escape, she's clocked by Black Cat, then they have a brief fight until Elektra suddenly stops, tumbles to the floor, with a crescent dart lodged through the back of her skull. What is happening? This is like Tarantino's Spider-Man. As Wolf and the cops prepare to make their way upstairs, Elektra's body is launched out of the building, probably through a third window. Why does defenestration happen 3 times in a row in this book? Jean wonders what the fuck is going on up there, and demands a battering ram to take down the reinforced front door. Black Cat then works on freeing the others, and by the time Jean and the police arrive, everyone that's still active is gone. And finally, about an hour later, Spidey hangs out and watches the scene as bodies are carted away, and the police continue to investigate. Then Felicia appears behind him, scaring him once again. Really, Felicia? You know how lame that was? You just sided with him like that!
Oh, I don't disagree.
Come on, you have so much going on for you. You're stunning, you're smart, you have some kind of powers. And this is what you think to do with it? To screw with the Kingpin to the point that you side with guys that are just as bad as him?
Kingpin killed my father. That just does something to you. That messes you up, but... You're right. I was wrong today, okay? I'll make it up to you.
Okay, you want to make it up to me? Stay away from me.
Hey, I just had a life-changing experience.
Good for you.
Do you really think I'm pretty?
I mean, well, yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you did.
Are you still mad at me?
Yes.
Yeah, well, what are you gonna do now?
Go home?
Can I go with you?
No.
Do you want me to kiss you?
A little bit?
Let's do it. Come on. Rachel, kiss me. I think about it all the time. What's under that mask? Who the mysterious man in my life really is? Come on, I want you to kiss me. Right now. Huh? inside your... Judge...
And elsewhere in New York, someone is getting what they want. Kingpin speaks to someone in his penthouse that if Hammerhead survives, the feds will press charges against him. But it's highly unlikely because he got stabbed in the fucking heart and then plummeted out of a several-story building. Then he learns that Elektra was going to sell him out. Then she got stabbed through the back of the head and plunged out of a several-story building, so she's dead. And finally, he learns about the mystery man that is Moon Knight, who got stabbed through the chest, not the heart, but he's in a coma. He also has no fingerprints, and Kingpin's informant thinks that he might be ex-CIA. Kingpin sighs at how obnoxious these costume heroes are, and then notes that there's one bright side to all of this. Spider-Man now fully trusts Captain Jean DeWolf. And much later, Peter returns home to find Aunt May waiting for him. She reprimands him for skipping school yet again and tells him that she'll kick him out of her house if he does it again. Then she walks away. The end. Released in 2006, written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Mark Bagley and Mark Brooks, this is Ultimate Spider-Man, Silver Sable. The book begins as Kitty Pryde is ambushed by a big purple dragon. It roars fire at her, and Kitty turns herself intangible. Then Nightcrawler and Colossus arrive valiantly. But Kitty just isn't into it, and she can't stop thinking about how her life has become totally encompassed about being an X-Man, and that she used to actually have friends. But now she just hangs out at the mansion all day, and ponders life, and how she used to have stuff to do. And to make matters worse, she broke up with Bobby Drake the Iceman, and now she still has to live in the same giant mansion as he does. She apologizes to Nightcrawler and Colossus because Kurt put in a lot of work programming the Danger Room Dungeons and Dragons session, but she's just not feeling up to it, and she heads off. Elsewhere, the Rhino appears in Manhattan once again. Spidey battles the mechanical menace and feels like he's just kinda going through the motions. He admires the mech suit that the Rhino is made of and all that, but it's just, what's the point? Then he kinda zones out about a project that he wanted to get around to, but he keeps pushing back, and the Rhino launches him into a boardroom. Spidey gets to his feet and watches as the US military surround the Rhino in the streets below at a construction site. So he leaps down, grabs an eye bar, and jams it inside the Rhino's power source, detonating and dismantling the suit. Spidey sits down as General Ross arrives and screams at him for screwing up the Rhino armor because that shit cost a lot of money for the eggheads over at the Baxter building to fix. Spidey tells Ross that maybe he should stop letting the Rhino escape, and swings away. A bit later, the X-Men host a cookout in the afternoon, and Kitty is still self-loathing and continually calls herself a loser of the school, worrying that no one actually likes her and she doesn't fit in. She's also annoyed that Bobby doesn't even act like he misses dating her. Storm passes her the potatoes. I've never been to a cookout before, or a barbecue or anything, where they specifically made baked potatoes. I don't know why that just was off to me. I don't know, maybe it's a Colossus thing, because he's Russian. Anyway, Kitty phases away and Storm becomes worried. And at Midtown High School, Peter feels like mainstream 616 Peter, in that he's a loser with no friends. Due to his paranoia of having connections as Spider-Man. We even get a recreation of the Sam Raimi film when MJ walks past him in the cafeteria and then goes and sits at a different table and starts speaking with one of the boys there. And Peter watches this, gets up, and then leaves. And back at the mansion, Jean Grey asks Kitty how she's doing, because Storm told her that Kitty's been acting weird recently. And I'm pretty sure Jean just reads her mind, because she immediately realizes that Kitty is lonely and wants a connection with someone, telling her that she needs a boyfriend. Jean assures young Kitty that she'll find someone, and Kitty asks where, because there's not exactly many people at this school, and the wide variety of new faces that she meets are trying to kill her. Jean reads her mind again, and tells Kitty it's not a good idea what she's thinking about right now. Kitty gets annoyed that she did it without her permission, and Jean jokes that Kitty's mind was practically a fucking lighthouse with the idea. She tells Kitty that she doesn't even know him, and Kitty tells her that she's met him before. He's cool and super cute, and Jean has even been in his brain, and she, above everyone else, knows that he's a good guy. And later that evening, Peter sits at home, reading forums ragging on Spider-Man when the house phone in his bedroom rings. He answers it, and hears the mumbling of Kitty second-guessing herself with Jean and Storm in the background. He hangs up on the unknown number, and then it rings again. And Kitty finally answers his greeting and tells him who she is. Peter's freaked out that she somehow got his home phone. Kitty apologizes for calling out of the blue and asks what he's doing tomorrow. And Peter tells her she has school. She clarifies that she meant after that and wonders if he wants to hang out with her. And then they just have a fun, cute conversation as the two grow in confidence and like their anxiety diminishes. It's very cute. I love it. Kitty then blurts out the question of whether or not he has a girlfriend. Peter tells her that he did, but it's this whole thing. Kitty apologizes and then asks when his school gets out, and they make an arrangement to meet at Midtown at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. And then Peter thanks her for calling and saying it was really cool that she reached out. And shortly after, he Googles the X-Men and finds a recent photo of the current roster and admires Kitty Pryde. I'm sure that's something that Brian Michael Bendis has a lot of history doing. Clearly, Kitty Pryde was a huge crush of his growing up, because she's in pretty much all of his Marvel books when he gets the chance. The next day at Midtown High, Kitty finds Peter Parker as school is let out. Peter asks if there's a plan for the evening. Kitty asks if he had a plan. Peter tells her no, he did not have a plan. That is some nice Bendis dialogue. Kitty jokingly asks what normal kids do after school, and so they head to the mall and eat at the food court. Kitty jokes that once mutants take over the world, the man who invented the corn dog shall be spared. And Peter's not sure if she's joking. And Kitty laughs in his face at his shocked expression. They start talking a little more, and Kitty tells him that all this world saving she's been up to, she has no friends. And Peter tells her that he's in the same boat. And then he brings up Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four being a buddy, although they don't really talk much, especially since the FF went public. Then Flash Thompson walks past and thumps Peter's shoulder and keeps on walking and giggling. And Kitty asks why Peter doesn't go public too, since, stuff like that won't happen. But Peter tells her that people hate Spider-Man and no one knows who he is, so imagine what'll happen if they do know who he is. And then Peter brings up MJ in regards to his identity and, their breakup, but he stops himself and says that he doesn't want to complain to Kitty about all of this. Kitty tells him that she cares and wants to know what he's going through. So Peter recounts to Kitty that he and MJ broke up because she kept getting in trouble and wasn't careful enough, and she didn't listen to him when he warned her about all of his villains and superheroic threats. So they ended it. He asks Kitty her relationship experience, and she tells him that she's only dated one boy, and that was Iceman. But he ended up being a jerkwad and they broke up, but now she has to live in the same house as the guy. Then Flash tosses a pepper shaker, I guess, on the table and laughs as Kenny kind of chuckles alongside him. And Kitty asks if they can leave. So they climb up to the rooftop of the mall and overlook the setting sun as it glows beautifully over the city of New York. Peter points out the Triskelion in the bay in the distance, and Kitty calls Nick Fury a tool. The two laugh, and then Kitty asks if he doesn't plan on dating anyone else. Peter tells her that he can't protect them from the dangers of his life, and Kitty quickly asks what if they had powers. And she gets super embarrassed about how forward that sounded and phases away through the roof. Peter watches in confusion, calls out to no one, and prepares to leave when she returns. She apologizes for spazzing out, and Peter smiles and helps her up to her feet. He tells her that he's the spaz. She's just quirky, and Kitty asks what he meant by that. Peter tells her he means cute, and then the two slowly lean in towards each other. Then an explosion goes off a few blocks away. Peter removes his clothes and switches into his Spider-Man outfit, and Kitty reminds him that she's a superhero too, and that she can't be hurt. So they swing into action, and it's the Shocker. This poor sap just robbed a bank and has no idea what's coming. Kitty rocks up and cracks wise. Shocker shoots her, phases right through her, so she walks up to him, phases through his Shocker guns, and disrupts him. Then Spidey reveals himself. Shocker runs away in a panic and is quickly webbed up. Kitty Pryde and then hypes up Spider-Man, and everyone claps and cheers for the hero. Kitty tells him that people do like him, and then they swing away.
Well, Indiana Jones, you certainly haven't forgotten how to show a lady a good time.
Yeah, you're something. You're supposed to say, I'm something all right until I get my $5,000 back, and you're getting more than you bargained for. No?
Wow, you outkicked me there. Crap.
What?
My ride's here.
You gotta go?
I gotta go.
Can I call you?
Totally. Although, maybe email me too? The professor hates when the phone rings after 10.
Can we do this again?
Do you want to?
Yeah.
Hold on, Jean. Shut up. Sorry, Jean Grey is talking to me in my head. What's your schedule?
Oh, my schedule sucks. But weekends I work Saturday in the afternoons. That's about it.
Do you wanna do something on Saturday night?
Yeah, I really do.
Unless we're saving the world or something. That's the only reason I won't be able to.
Me too.
Were you going to kiss me before?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, if you still want to.
That plane is so cool. And later that night, Peter Parker arrives back home and checks his computer to find that he has already gotten an email from Kitty Pryde. And the two converse back and forth late into the night. Flashback time. 1 month ago, the Wrecking Crew's superhuman cleanup company, Damage Control, handles this. Thunderball, aka Elliot Franklin, takes some information down from the man in charge of the Roxxon-controlled dockyard. And then we get a flashback in a flashback from when the SS Roxxon arrived at the dock and fucking exploded, and the mutant, Omega Red, makes himself known. Spider-Man swung onto the scene and kicks him, and the two, fight through the dock, and Omega Red goes for the Roxxon representative, revealing that he was hired by someone that Mr. Roxxon really pissed off. And Spidey does that cool slingshot thing he does, and bashes Omega Red across the yard and into a truck, then calls him Pillsbury Doughboy, and crushes him with a forklift. Mr. Exum from Roxxon finishes telling Thunderball what happened, as he continues to fill out his forms, and Ben Urich arrives at the scene, and right behind him, a shadowy figure speaks over an earpiece regarding Spider-Man no longer being at the scene. And in his penthouse office, Donald Roxxon notes that this is the second time that Spider-Man has stopped an attack on his company, and he orders Silver Sable to bring Spider-Man to him for questioning, because he must know who's attacking Roxxon with the mercenaries. Duh. That's why this superhero is stopping supervillains, because he knows something. So this idiot hires Silver Sable's team, the Wild Pack, and they begin their search and spread throughout the city to areas that they've noticed Spider-Man passes through in general in Manhattan. And eventually they spot him one day and get their chopper to tail him, but the pilot loses him within Queens. After some more surveillance, a member of the team finally spots Spider-Man and eventually watches him disappear atop of the Midtown High School roof. And we're all caught up in the present. So Silver Sable's team hang out in their surveillance van one morning, and they spot Spidey arriving on the roof before disappearing behind the building in the back area where the dumpsters are. The team watch as a figure begins to emerge from the area behind the school. Chen and Powell move in with their super tasers and sneak to the corner, silently ready themselves, and leap around the building, tasing Spider-Man. They alert Sable that they got him and order the truck to be pulled around immediately. And sometime later, at a warehouse, Spider-Man sits unconscious, tied to a chair with a bag over his head. Chen gives Sable his wallet, and they're shocked that Spider-Man is a high school student. And they look him up on their hacked data network and find that he's clean, has a job after school, but his grades suck. And Sable puts some ammonia inhalants before Spider-Man, and Flash Thompson wakes up in a panic. Sable tells him to calm down, they're not going to kill him. At least not yet, because their boss just wants to ask Spider-Man some questions. And Flash pleads that he's not Spider-Man, he's just a high school student. He begins crying and panicking, and Sable orders him out of the chair, kicks him in the jaw, knocks him unconscious, and angrily tells the others that this is clearly not Spider-Man and that they fucked up. Meanwhile, at Midtown High, Peter sits in the library, actually feeling happy for the first time in quite a while, as he thinks about Kitty Pryde and seeing her again later today. And MJ wonders what the hell he's so happy about. Then Kong walks over and asks if Peter has seen Flash around today, because Kenny hasn't seen him at all, and Flash isn't answering his phone, and he's addicted to that thing. Back in the warehouse, Sable reprimands her Wild Pack for their major fuck-up. Wild Pack all begin blaming each other for the screw-up, and everyone starts arguing about what they're supposed to do with the kid. But Flash uses his football skills and tackles them into each other and roofs it out the door as Powell opens fire on him. The Wild Pack race outside, with Flash nowhere in sight. And later that day after school, Peter finds Kitty Pryde looking all cool with her new sunglasses. He asks what she's doing here, and she tells him that she was bored at the mansion, so she guilted Storm into flying her here in the X-Jet, and she asks what he's gonna do today. And Peter tells her he's calling out sick to work. Then they head off, unknowingly being watched by Mary Jane. That night, the nightly news runs the story on a Midtown high school student getting abducted in Queens by an alleged mercenary group who reportedly mistook him for Spider-Man. The Queens County Sheriff gives a press conference on what happened to one Frederick Thompson and how he valiantly escaped. A reporter asks why the abductees thought he was Spider-Man, asking if Spider-Man is possibly a teacher at the school, and the sheriff tells them that they don't know anything about Spider-Man, so he can't answer any questions, but as far as the kidnappers go, they are using the descriptions from Flash and working hard with the FBI to find them. And in a final note, he says that Flash is a little shaken up and bruised, but he'll be fine, and he was a tremendous help, even going so far as to call Flash a hero. And Silver Sable waits for Donald Roxxon in his limousine and asks why he hasn't been answering his phone calls all of a sudden, especially since they're in the middle of a transaction. Roxxon asks if she expects him to pay her for kidnapping a child, and Sable informs him it's just a small bump, but she is fully committed to the assignment and that they will finish the job free of charge, no additional payments necessary. And Roxxon gives her 3 days before he hires someone else to clean up this mess. Seeing as how well he did this time, I doubt it's any worry. And back in Queens, Peter and Kitty Pryde spend the evening together as Aunt May is at work, and then, I guess, hanging out with friends after, telling each other stories of all the villains they fought and are talking. And the next day, the parking lot at Midtown High is a media frenzy. Flash is interviewed along with Kenny Kong McFarlane, Liz Allen, Tandy Bowen, the school president, and Principal Andrew. And Peter watches in total shock. MJ comes up and asks if he knows what happened. Peter tells her he has no idea and that they need to keep quiet because of all the microphones. And MJ explains, because she watched the news, and asks how someone could have figured out he went to school here and suggests that Peter should lay low for a while. And then they head inside and joke about how Flash is definitely going to get rich off of Peter. That's just his luck. Then MJ tells him that she knows he's dating someone, and they sort of awkwardly just quiet down and continue walking in silence until they split up inside. Later, Peter walks to class when the police on campus perform a random bag check on him, demanding to take a look inside his backpack, and the cop snaps it from his hand and begins unzipping the bag when someone races down the hall in an ill-fitting Spider-Man Halloween costume and the cops give chase after him. Peter panics, hugging his backpack, and runs a few blocks away into an alley and starts calling himself an idiot as he tries to not have a panic attack. He freaks out that he's getting sloppy, he's a fool, he's leading all of this terrible madness to his school, his classmates are getting kidnapped, and what happened to Gwen, Harry, is now gonna happen to everybody else because he's stupid enough to be walking into school with a superhero costume. And he tells himself that he's lucky that Aunt May isn't dead, and that he needs to stop being a child. Later, Peter arrives at May's work, and he hands her his bag. But he's unable to bring himself to tell her to open it, and instead just mutters, "Spider-Man?" And May asks what happened, and Peter tells her about Flash being kidnapped from the school yesterday, and how the news are swarming the school. And he reveals that the people who kidnapped Flash had apparently followed Spider-Man to the school, and it led to Peter. May sits there quietly, and eventually says that she was wondering when they would get to this. She leans forward and tells him that Spider-Man is a despicable coward, an idiot who runs around and does whatever he wants. And that's why he wears a mask, to get away with everything. One day he's helping people, the next day people are getting hurt because of him. She reveals to Peter that she goes to a therapist and asks if he'd like to try it. Because ever since Ben and Gwen and everything else in their life, the Osborn stuff, the monsters, the Spider-Men, the superheroes and villains, it's all gotten too much for her. And she thinks that it's finally getting to him too. He's been cutting class, sneaking out, and she gave him slack, but it's clearly affecting him quite a bit. He's had a full-blown panic attack. Finally, she tells him that Spider-Man is not a part of their lives, and that they don't need to let their lives be dictated by people like him. She asks if Peter wants to try the therapy, and he says maybe, and then stays quiet. And later that day, Peter lies in his bedroom and speaks to Kitty over the phone about how he totally chickened out with his aunt because he was stunned at her reaction to Spider-Man. Kitty tells him that it's just not the time to tell her, and he'll know when it is. And then she tells him about how her mom found out she was a mutant and she lived with it. And Peter begins to tear up as he tells Kitty that Aunt May is his only family. and she hates Spider-Man. Kitty assures that she won't when she knows the truth. She suggests that he take the fight to them. Then Bobby barges in the door and Kitty shouts at him to leave as he pokes fun at her. Kitty slams her door shut and groans and tells Peter that he should go after the kidnappers. Then she hears Bobby eavesdropping and pops him through the door. And that night, Flash and his father speak with an entertainment lawyer about a made-for-TV movie being made about Flash's experiences. Flash's shitty dad complains that it's not enough money and tells Flash to leave and let the grown-ups talk. So Flash heads to his bedroom and finds Spider-Man on the ceiling. But before he can scream, Spidey webs his mouth shut and asks Flash to tell him everything he knows about the kidnapping. You know, once the webs dissolve. After Flash spills the beans, Spidey heads to the warehouse, hoping that Kitty was right, and a grappling arrow is shot at him by Powell. Spider-Man yanks it out of his hand and leaps around as Chen opens fire with a big-ass tranquilizer gun. Then Quintino attacks, and Spidey easily webs everyone up and tells him it was so easy he's kind of embarrassed to let anyone know it even happened. Sable agrees and tells Spidey that someone paid them a lot to bring him in. It's nothing personal, and they weren't trying to hurt him, so Spidey webs her up too. Then he steals her cell phone and tries to ring the cops, and her phone erupts and discombobulates him totally, and he falls to the ground unconscious. And everybody kind of sits there, and Chen reveals that he left his knife in the car. Even later that night, Sable and the Wild Pack bring Spider-Man to Donald Roxxon in the middle of the city. They rip his mask off, and everyone is shocked that he's so young. Then she actually wakes him up, and Peter snaps awake, realizes he's bound, and then realizes that they took his mask off. Roxxon asks why he's worked so hard to save him and his company, and Peter asks who the hell he is, and demands to be released. Roxxon shows him all the security footage of Spidey fighting villains, and Spidey tells him he was simply in the right place. He didn't even realize the events had anything to do with Roxxon. He doesn't even know who Donald Roxxon is. Sable orders Chen to run his prints, and he uses a Stark Tech wireless 535 spy scan that he hacked into a global server system, and the system searches for Peter's information. And across the town at the Triskelion, Nick Fury is alerted that someone has run an unauthorized fingerprint match test for one Peter Parker. And Fury sends out high-level alerts and immediately orders a triangulation and stealth team. Chen informs Sable that S.H.I.E.L.D. is now triangulating them, and they all panic. Sable destroys the device and tells Donald Roxxon that Spider-Man is protected by S.H.I.E.L.D., and that they're getting the fuck out of here. Roxxon panics because he's never been a part of anything like this, and as he argues with Sable, Spidey breaks free and escapes, and then the room blows up. Roxxon is launched out of the building and plummets to the ground until Spider-Man catches him and webs him into the logo, and returns to take down the Wild Pack. Fortunately, he finds Chen dead and the rest of the pack very wounded. Silver Sable opens fire as the assailant tosses another bomb, and Spidey catches it and lobs it away into the sky as the Vulture hovers before them. Spidey races in the battle as the Wild Pack open fire on the Vulture, and he maneuvers away. Spidey swings after him as Sharon Carter monitors the situation and reports back to Fury at the Triskelion. And Tony just happens to be there that night and suggests that he get suited up, but Fury tells him to let this play out a little bit. So Vulture unloads some more grenades, which distracts Spider-Man from his chase as he launches them into the sky. Fury's stealth team catches a good look of Vulture's face, and the system runs it to find his name is Blackie Drago, a decommissioned S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Vulture spots Donald Roxxon trapped on his logo. Vulture soars in for the kill as Sable tries to shoot him down, but Spidey tackles the Vulture at the last second. And Tony says that enough is enough, and the kid's gonna get hurt if he doesn't suit up, but Fury holds him back a little longer, and explains that he wants to test Peter. Spidey has an aerial battle against the Vulture through the skyscrapers in the night sky, and the Vulture unleashes his razor-sharp wing feather knives. Spidey dodges and races away, and asks him to please go back to the grenades. Meanwhile, Tony and Fury continue watching, wondering who made that suit, because it's pretty impressive. Sharon Carter reports that she's picking up a call from Roxxon's phone, so they hack into it and track where the call is coming from. Roxxon watches as Spidey battles the Vulture, and speaks to a mysterious man who ridicules him and tells Dawn that he is going to destroy him and his company. But he really wants Donald Roxxon to know who did this to him. And back at the Triskelion, S.H.I.E.L.D. traces the call and gets the info of the caller. Meanwhile, Spider-Man is choked out, and Vulture soars them back as he prepares to drop Spidey to his doom. But Silver Sable opens fire and strikes the Vulture's backpack, causing his flight suit to fail, and Vulture plummets to the ground as Spider-Man works to save him. He rescues the Vulture, and they wind up flying into the Rockefeller Center, and Spidey webs him to the fountain statue of Prometheus. Then he lands in the middle of the crowd sits down and catches his breath. But before he relaxes, he remembers that he left Roxxon on the side of the Roxxon. He races back and finds Roxxon, Rock's gone. Then he heads up to the penthouse and discovers the Wild Pack are also gone. So he webs home. And later in the middle of the night, Iron Man and Nick Fury work together to raid a secret lab in New Jersey of a man who calls himself the Tinkerer. And Fury introduces himself to Elijah Stern, a former employee at the R&D department of Roxxon before he was fired. Stern demands a lawyer, and Fury says he's gonna need a massive amounts of therapy on top of it. Stern argues that Roxxon were idiots because he could have given the company the future. He figured out how to use vibranium as an unlimited power source. But his department was shut down and he was fired. Iron Man asks how the hell he was able to afford all of this, and Tinkerer explains that he simply hacked the Roxxon financial accounts and hired all of his goons through a dark web henchman website. But Fury's heard enough, and he gives Tinkerer an ultimatum. He can either work for Fury until Fury has said Stern has served his time and sees a shrink, or Fury shoots him for trying to escape. And Fury takes all of his neat little toys anyway. Stern chokes and tells him he would very much like to do the first one. So Fury then takes a look around and wonders what the big machine over yonder is, and Stern tells him that it's called the Slayer. And then we kind of flash forward about 3 months because the airing of the Lifetime original movie Caught in the Spider's Web, the Flash Thompson story, airs on TV. And Peter watches alone in his house as Kitty speaks to him over the phone, and the entire X-Men, especially Logan, laugh their asses off. The end. Released in 2006, written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Mark Bagley and Mark Brooks, this is Ultimate Spider-Man Deadpool. The book begins about a month after the previous. Captain Jean DeWolf arrives at the hospital housing the mysterious, no-fingerprint-having Moon Knight, who has been in a coma since he was stabbed through the chest by Elektra. Jean's been called because Moon Knight has finally woken up and escaped. Elsewhere, Spider-Man once again faces off with good old Shocker. And by faces off, I mean easily defeats. Shocker breaks down that Spider-Man just won't leave him alone for once. And who should be there but Franklin Foggy Nelson, one of the lawyers who represented the Hulk, Bruce Banner, in his trial earlier that year. Foggy informs Spider-Man that he's wasting time just leaving criminals webbed to lampposts for the cops to find because any lawyer out of law school could get that thrown out in seconds. Foggy introduces himself and explains that what Spider-Man needs to do is start bringing criminals to the cops because he has witnesses, and Shocker could be sent away to 3 to 5 years, but he whispers to Shocker that it'll probably get knocked down to 1. Cut to the 5th Precinct in Manhattan. The news is still discussing the invasion of America by the Liberators as a costume clown is ushered through the room crying out, "Not like this!" And I believe that this is the first use of the running gag that Bendis loves to put in his comics of a character dressed like the 616 version getting paraded through the police station shouting out strange lines or references. It happens all the time. It's a fun running joke. I do enjoy it, and it never really gets overused, thankfully, because we don't really go to the police station all that often. And everyone stares Spider-Man climbing through the window with the Shocker. All the cops draw their guns, but Jean calls them off. Spidey explains what happened as the police move Shocker into a holding cell, and Jean asks him to meet on the roof. They head up to the top. She asks where he's been, because the last time they talked, he told her that Hammerhead was nailed. Yeah, that works. That actually works. Anyway, she asks if he's really dating one of the X-Men now, and Spidey passes the question and asks what she wanted to talk about up here. Jean brings up when Spidey freaked out about the info that Kingpin gave him, and that Jean told him that it doesn't really matter because good info on a bad guy is still good info. And then she asks what he would do if she had info on a bad guy. Spidey asks why she doesn't just do anything since, she's a cop. And she points out that that's the issue. She can't actually act until they officially get something on the guy. Spidey's unsure, but Jean cries out that if they wait too long, something real heinous will happen. Spidey asks who it is. Jean reveals the guy's a man named Frank Oliver, aka the Kangaroo. and he has been making plays for unclaimed territory, but they just can't find anything official that they can actually act on. And Spidey tells her that he's surprised that she's willing to break the law like this. And Jean says that if he doesn't do anything, that's fine. She's just so tired of all this and figured it was worth a try to propose it. Spider-Man tells her that if he sees something happen, he'll act accordingly. And then she just happens to have a card on her with the kangaroo's location and gives it over. And Spider-Man swings away into the city. And Jean waits until he's gone, pulls out her phone, and contacts the Kingpin. Hey, look, he's in his classic outfit. Honestly, it looks weird seeing Ultimate Kingpin dressed like this. I don't like it. She informs him that she just sent Spidey after the kangaroo, and they make an arrangement to meet tonight at 11 before Fisk returns to his breakfast with a senator. And later that day, Spider-Man hangs outside Hicks Billiards, just kind of watching, confusing the people that live in the apartment building he's stuck to. And then someone is smashed out of the window and he swings into action where he finds Daredevil kicking the shit out of these guys. Spider-Man's actually met Daredevil before in the Ultimate Universe. It was a few years prior, very early in Spider-Man's career. It was when the Punisher was like causing a scene and Daredevil was being a fucking asshole, because he just is. And he also threatened to get Spider-Man arrested. Ultimate Daredevil is just such a prick, and he just has a terrible temper and is just so overly aggressive. I hate him. He's an ass. Anyway, Spider-Man races into action to help, and Daredevil runs over and whacks him on the head and tosses him out of the window and yells to Spidey to go home. Then calls him a dumb fuck. Daredevil gets smacked around as Spider-Man returns and webs some guys up. Then Daredevil senses another figure across the street, the fucking Punisher, on the rooftop with a rocket launcher. Now that is a game of Clue I would play. Punisher blasts the rocket at the bar, and both Spidey and Daredevil are launched back. Then Punisher just opens fire to get any stragglers, and the two are caught in the crossfire. Spidey says he thought Punisher was still in prison, and that he didn't invite him to this. And Daredevil tells him to shut up. Then Moon Knight arrives, and he battles Punisher as Spidey climbs the wall of the apartment building and webs them both. And back downstairs, Daredevil finds Kangaroo emerging from the rubble and spocks him with a billy club as the police arrive. Daredevil disappears through the smoke as the cops surround Kangaroo, followed by Jean DeWolf. Spider-Man gets Moon Knight and Punisher webbed up and secured, but Moon Knight cuts himself free and runs away after Spidey heads down to the street to meet the cops. Jean leans into the Kangaroo and whispers in his ear that Fisk told him it would come in shapes he'd never imagine. Right before Spider-Man arrives, he tells her that Punisher and Moon Knight are over on the roof, as Punisher looks down to the street and realizes who the kid's talking to. And he aims his gun and pulls the trigger, and Jean DeWolf is riddled with bullets before Spider-Man's eyes. She topples over onto him, and Spidey leaps up the wall and begins ramming his fists in the castle's face, demanding to know why he killed her. And Punisher spits out blood and tells him that she was a dirty cop working for the Kingpin, just like he is. Daredevil emerges and tells Spider-Man that, well, it doesn't make it right. Frank's telling the truth. Spidey asks why she sent him here then. Daredevil explains that he's taken out competition, just like Hammerhead. And Spidey asks how she's dirty and if it's even true. And Daredevil reveals that there's a rumor that Jean sleeps with Fisk on top of everything else. And Daredevil tells Spider-Man that they need to get out of here as he listens to the cops heading up the stairs and welcomes him to the real world. And the two escape into the city. That night, Moon Knight arrives at Mark Spector's home where he finds Daredevil. He launches a knife, but Daredevil quickly deflects it and explains that he's putting a team together, because if Kingpin can have an army, so can they. And at 11:22 p.m., Wilson Fisk sits in his penthouse bedroom alone and lets out a long, heavy, wary breath. 1 month later, Spider-Man has been ringed by a new villain straight out of Waldorf, Maryland, named Ringer. Ringer shoots his rings at the ringed Spider-Man, who swiftly dodges and cracks wise. Then, a mysterious new hero arrives on the scene wearing this full-body yellow and green suit thing. She arrives and clocks Ringer in the face before kicking him away as Spider-Man tries to free himself. Ringer shoots his rings at her, but they phase right through her. Yeah, it's Kitty Pryde. She's trying something new. And it's a cute reference to how often Kitty Pryde in the main Marvel universe used to change costumes back in the 80s. This one being a cool update to her old Ariel costume. So she phases through Ringer, and is very confused as to why her powers have not short-circuited any of his tech. She asks him to give her a second, then runs over to Spider-Man, phases him out of the webs, accidentally leaving his shirt behind, and they spot Ringer running away. So Spidey webs a wall in front of him before webbing his ringed hands, causing Ringer's gauntlets and backpack to start overheating and explode. Right next to Kitty Pryde. Spider-Man screams out and jumps down for her, and she reminds him that her powers are literally phasing through things that can hurt her. Ringer's backpack smolders as the police arrive, and he grabs her, and they swing away. And she laughs and makes fun about how lame his villains are as they land atop the roof of the Daily Bugle. Spider-Man brings up her new costume and asks what it's supposed to be? Her rationale is that if she, Kitty Pryde, X-Man, is seen running around with Spider-Man and Peter Parker, then people are going to start connecting the dots. So she has created a new superhero identity for herself. And Peter recommends a new name, Spider-Girl. And she tells him, no way. So they swing back through the city as they discuss how they're exactly going to date in real life. Something they've done briefly throughout the past month or so, but they mostly meet up in costume. They land at the famous Ultimate Spider-Man warehouse and wait for Kitty to get picked up and discuss the matter on how exactly they're going to reveal it to everyone in Peter Parker's life that he's dating Kitty. Peter notes that he doesn't want Aunt May to know he's Spider-Man, which might happen, like Kitty said earlier about the dots being connected. And Kitty flat out tells him that she's tired of not being able to just hang out and hold hands and go to movies and do regular stuff with her boyfriend. Peter tells her that his issues aren't from her. He's just paranoid. Kitty tells him that if he tells Aunt May he has a girlfriend, then he'll have more excuses not to be home so he can go out saving the world from all of his lame villains. Peter laughs and asks if they would tell Aunt May if Kitty is a mutant or even an X-Man, and Kitty says it's public knowledge and suggests that they just tell people they met at the mall. Then the X-Jet arrives on its automated remote setting because the X-Men are sick of flying Kitty back and forth, and then Kitty apologizes for maybe coming off as pushy and trying to get him to commit to their relationship. And he smiles and asks if she can take back the things she said about his villains. She refuses, and they kiss. And then she accidentally phases through him. Did she get, too excited or something and lose focus? She jokes that she didn't know how to end the kiss, and Peter kind of just goes along with it and tells her to call him when she gets home to make sure she got home safe. Then she rises up to the X-Jet and changes back into her X-Man uniform and worries that she scared Peter off, calls herself an idiot. And back at Xavier's school, Kitty arrives to find the school totally empty. She calls out as she enters the kitchen and finds Wolverine lumbering in the hall. Then he attacks her with a knife and she phases through it. Kitty phases through the ground as someone else opens fire with a weird sci-fi taser thing, and she drops into the mansion's basement. She runs away in a panic and races to the communications room with the plan to call the Ultimates. No, Nick Fury. Nick Fury will be able to handle this. But without thinking, she phases through the comm center, short-circuiting everything. She hears the door activated, and Kitty launches the Blackbird, and then the door opens, and she's shot by the tasers and falls to the ground. Later, Peter finds Aunt May all dressed up and asks if she's got a hot date. She tells him she's going out with a group of friends from work, and he sees her out, and then, off in the distance, he spots the X-Jet, just kinda hovering over that warehouse. So he suits up and swings over and climbs aboard and finds no one inside as the Blackbird activates its return protocol and Peter is locked inside. 20 minutes later, the jet arrives at the school and Spidey heads out and calls for Kitty or anyone. Peter heads up to the front door and meets Kitty Pryde, but then his spider sense starts going off and he asks, is Wolverine here? And then he is tased and falls to the ground writhing in agony as the image of Kitty shifts to that of Deadpool, and his Reavers back him up as they excitedly look over Spider-Man, someone they weren't even sent here to grab. Peter later wakes up to find all of the X-Men shackled in the back of a plane. Deadpool tells his underling to hit him again, and Spidey's tased but doesn't fall unconscious. Deadpool orders the team to start dropping him as one of the guys prepares to take off Spider-Man's mask, but Deadpool stops him. and tells him that masks mean something, and that they need to respect that. Then he wakes Spider-Man up and tosses him out of their high-tech helicopter. Spider-Man plummets and begins firing his webbing to create a trampoline. He bounces back up and over the tree line and spots some of the other X-Men before he lands in the jungle. Spidey picks himself up, gets his hands around to his front, and tries to get his shoe back when this massive cyborg attacks him. Spidey dodges and webs the guy's face over before webbing him completely and running away, right into Colossus. Spidey doesn't recognize him at first and freaks out that it's another killer robot before he realizes it's just the friendly big Russian. Colossus asks Spidey what the hell he's doing here, and Peter realizes that Kitty must be here somewhere and that they need to find her. Colossus tries to calm him down because Kitty Pryde can very well handle herself, and they need to figure out what is going on. Colossus notes that Storm attacked him, and if Kitty attacks Spider-Man, that means that they're dealing with some kind of shapeshifter situation. Colossus continues to ponder this when a massive beam shoots through the trees. They race towards it and find Cyclops taking on 4 Reaver cyborgs. Colossus and Spidey back him up, and Colossus frees him as Spidey starts calling out for Kitty. Cyclops demands that he shut the fuck up because they're being hunted. Then this big 4-armed snake cyborg arrives and unloads his arm cannons. Is this supposed to be like, I don't know, Bushwhacker or something? I don't know the Reavers and all their stupid names, but I doubt it is Bushwhacker because none of them get names in this. But I think it's fun and kind of fits. He has the giant arm cannon thing. So Ultimate Bushwhacker unloads his arm cannons on the trio, and Colossus takes a direct hit and stumbles back as Cyclops unleashes his optic blasts. But Bushwhacker has a protective shielding and ridicules the disgusting, worthless mutants. Then he's struck directly by multiple beams of lightning. And Storm appears. She rises them up into the sky, and Cyclops finds out they're back on Krakoa. So, in a previous volume of Ultimate X-Men, not too long ago at the time of this book taking place, maybe about a month or so, we learn of the existence of Genosha and Krakoa. Now, Genosha is a horrible anti-mutant country off the coast of, was it Madagascar, I think? And Mojo Adams is this giant albino man who has gained access to the nearby island of Krakoa, where he has just for years been producing Hunt for Justice, a 24/7 reality show where they hunt down the most dangerous game, mutants. And Kitty discovered it through like some forums online and like hacked into it through like, I don't know, like a dark web streaming service or something. And they find out about it and the X-Men go try to stop it. Things went bad. They got stuck on the island a little bit. They escape. Obviously, they didn't stop it. Anyway, some helicopters began flying at them and open fire, and Storm drops them all to the ground in a whirlwind that catches one of the choppers, causing it to crash into the jungle. Then Kitty appears, and she races to Peter, and they embrace and explains that she sent the plane to him, and he actually came to help. And he's like, duh, I'm your boyfriend. And they embrace excitedly. Then Nightcrawler arrives after following the billowing black smoke, followed by Rogue and Angel, who is carrying Jean after he found her hanging in a tree. Cyclops takes her in his arms and tries to wake her up. Her eyes rip open and Jean comes to, and Cyclops explains where they are. And then Kitty explains it to Peter. And Spider-Man freaks out that they are on live TV right now. Then Deadpool and his Reaver army blast through the jungle. And what follows is just a spectacular spin on how to work this reality TV show format into a comic book. It's really clever, I think. We witness the Reavers going face-to-face with the X-Men and Spidey as Augustus Beezer fills time until they get good footage to switch to. And he begins telling the audience at home about their star, Deadpool, aka Sergeant Wadey Wilson, a former sergeant in the Wakanda Wars from the early 90s, who, when approached to lead the reboot of Hunt for Justice the year prior, handpicked the Reavers himself, men so intensely against the existence of mutants that they have voluntarily undergone biogenetic surgeries to fight the good fight. Cyclops orders everyone into strategic retreat because they're outnumbered. The team races away through the jungle as the broadcast splices in between footage intermittently. Then Augustus Beezer speaks to Deadpool live, and he's interrupted because one of their remote cameras has Spider-Man and Kitty Pryde in the shot. And the microphone picks up their conversation that they need to contact Nick Fury or something, and they whisper through the brush as Kitty asks him to please not break up with her, and then they hug, and Kitty realizes that she forgot all about Professor Xavier. And Spider-Man's spidey senses go off and he swings her away as a massive rocket crashes into their location. As Deadpool takes down Colossus, rips off his visor, and prepares to cut his throat. Meanwhile, Angel is chased down by one of the attack choppers until Nightcrawler bamfs inside and takes out the pilot. The feed cuts to Kitty and Spider-Man making their way towards the studio complex at the peak of the mountain at the center of the island, and they send this info to Deadpool, and a massive explosion erupts. And Kitty tells Peter to not let go of her, because she's phasing them both at the center of the blast. Then Storm uses her powers to assault some of the Reavers and extinguishes the fire and flames. And the X-Men continue their fight towards the studio buildings. Spidey socks Deadpool as he arrives and grabs him and rips off his mask to reveal Charles Xavier. Kitty cries out for the professor, asking what the hell is going on. And Colossus wants to know how he's using his legs. Professor X shouts that they need to run very far and escape the island. And Spidey realizes something's up because his sense is going off and clocks Xavier in the kisser. He falls to the ground and the X-Men freak out when Xavier whips out a gat and starts unloading. And meanwhile, in the studio, Mojo Adams forces a nude, shackled, and depowered Charles Xavier to watch as the X-Men are hunted down like animals. And he tells Charles that once they're all dead, Professor Xavier himself will be lobotomized live on air as a reminder to all mutants who dare raise themselves above mankind. I mean, Magneto usually starts off as a villain, but typically his point is proven in every adaptation of the character. The X-Men escape to the jungle and Nightcrawler realizes that Scott is missing, but they realize that they cannot stop and must continue to the studio. Then Spider-Man's shot by an energy rifle out of a tree and he slams into the ground as the Reavers once again assault the team. Kitty Pryde goes fucking mental and she races through the army of Reavers, phasing through them all, destroying their mechanical, technological inner workings, killing them. But as they fight, Deadpool is able to get her in a moment of tangibility and she falls to the ground when Nightcrawler attacks and a Reaver's weapon system locks onto him. Then he teleports at the last second and Deadpool is shot 3 times in the chest. Angel grabs Deadpool and soars into the air before he drops him back down to the earth, and Deadpool is barely able to lift his broken, biogenetically engineered body when Spider-Man punches him away through the trees. He races over and rips off Deadpool's mask, revealing his horrid face beneath, shocking everyone and allowing Deadpool the chance to grab a gun. Deadpool picks himself up and focuses solely on killing Spider-Man. But then Colossus fastball specials Kitty and she phases through him, detonating his inner cybernetic alterations. The X-Men escape the explosion as Kitty again phases she and Peter through it, and more Reavers arrive, but they're killed by Cyclops, who leads the charge to the studios. Augustus cries out for the Genosian authorities to be contacted as the X-Men smash into the building. Jean Grey reads his mind and learns where Xavier is, and then the broadcast is cut off and all the power goes out. And in his office, Mojo demands a gun to shoot Charles Xavier, and then realizes that the power dampener is no longer functioning. And as the X-Men head through the dark halls, they hear a horrid scream echo towards them. And not long after, Professor X appears in his wheelchair, and he graciously thanks Mr. Parker for coming to their rescue and tells Peter that he is a fine young man and that they need to get him home right away. And as the X-Men commandeer a private jet, and Kitty sulks about what happened and cuddles against Peter for safety and falls asleep on his chest, a charred figure stands on the edge of the beach and holds his mask in hand. And much, much later that night, 4:30 a.m. to be exact, the X-Jet delivers Kitty and Peter to that warehouse, and they walk through the neighborhoods and back to Peter's. Peter tells Kitty that this is it. He is screwed, and he'll have to tell Aunt May everything. Kitty suggests maybe getting Jean or the professor to wipe her mind, but Peter shoots that down. And they hug, and Peter prepares to come in, but Kitty tells him she's coming too. Peter tries to stop her, but she refuses and says that Aunt May can't kill Peter if there's a witness. Peter smiles and takes her hand, and they head inside to find a totally dark, empty house. Peter looks upstairs. Nobody's there. Kitty takes a look around and lets him know that her car is gone. Peter begins to freak out that something happened to her. when Kitty spots a message on the home phone. And the message is from May, who, assuming Peter has already gone to bed, tells him that she is spending the night with her date, and she leaves the phone number to call just in case. And Kitty starts laughing that his aunt got her groove on, as Peter listens in horror. And you cannot tell me that Peter and Kitty didn't spend the night together, or more realistically probably tried to spend the night together until Jean Grey told Kitty to go back to the mansion. But I'm still not done, still going. And I hope you're ready for something spooky, because there's this little weird add-on right at the end. Flashback time. Several months ago, during summer break, on the night of a full moon, Spider-Man stops an armed assailant from gunning a man down in the street. Spidey is attacked by a vampire before the assailant, Blade, kills the demonic creature of the night. Blade threatens Spider-Man not to interfere with him ever again and disappears into the shadows. And in the present, Kitty and Peter discuss the footage of Spider-Man and Kitty Pryde together on Krakoa, because the show leaked all over the internet, probably from 4chan to YouTube. And the video of he and Kitty has been downloaded by 3 million people, and Entertainment Weekly says that they are the it couple. Kitty complains about being grounded with the X-Men because Xavier wants them to lay low until this all blows over. Peter tells her not to worry because he'll probably wind up doing something to embarrass himself and hit the headlines and replace it. Then he says how much this sucks because they can't go out and date like a real couple and have to keep sneaking around. And Kitty pleads with him to just reveal his identity already and take her to a movie, and gets upset about that fact. Understandably, I think. Like, you know, it kind of probably starts as a joke, but quickly becomes real because Kitty's upset that they have to keep sneaking around. Peter asks if they're okay as a couple, and Kitty freaks out that he wants to break up with her. Peter assures her that that is not the case, and Kitty apologizes for yelling and getting angry, and thanks him again for coming to her rescue. And Peter smiles and tells her that, hey, they're a hot item. Entertainment Weekly says so. They have to stick together now. Kitty laughs that they're a real hot item, all right. One's stuck in her room, and the other's at his part-time job at the Bugle. Then J. Jonah Jameson walks by with Ben Urich, and they discuss vampires. Jonah pleads with Ben to help him understand how an almost award-winning journalist hands him a story on vampires, and Ben tells Jonah that he's reported on the facts as they were presented to him, and asks Jonah why, in a world where mutants, Spider-Man, Captain America surviving being frozen for over 50 years, Tony Stark operating a human tank suit, how is that all more believable than vampires? Jonah tells him he's not printing this shit, and Peter asks Ben if he really saw a vampire. Ben tells Peter that if he did, it would be a headline, but he just interviewed someone who claimed to have seen a vampire. Robbie concurs that it's pretty flimsy and suggests that Ben work on finding something else if he really wants to get it printed, if there is anything to find. Peter asks to read what he has, and Ben hands it over. Peter then reads the interview of Jennifer Grunwald. Nice surname. And according to what Ben found out, 3 days prior, Jennifer was at work in the New York Public Library when she was approached by a strange man. She recalls a weird feeling when he appeared, almost like a haze that overcame her, and felt as though the man's voice spoke to her in her mind, but she can't remember what it was saying. She just remembers feeling overcome to follow him outside, and then vaguely remembers being in a back alley across the street from the library as the man was whispering in her ear something she didn't understand, and then a pleasurable pain in her neck as he bit her. And later that night, Ben Urich revisits Jennifer at her apartment. The door creaks open to reveal Jennifer dressed like this. She welcomes him, and Ben begins to sway like he's gone lightheaded, and Jennifer pulls him in and kisses him. And then she turns and pleads to something in the darkness that she is so hungry, and the voice instructs her to eat. And she drives her fangs into Ben Urich's neck. The next day, Peter leaves school in a modern redesign of Charlie Brown's shirt and finds MJ sitting on the bench outside, dejected. He smiles and asks what's up, since he really didn't see her much today, and she just stares at him and tells him not today. And then she holds up a copy of People magazine, with the cover photo being that of Spider-Man embracing Kitty Pryde. Peter takes it and sits down and asks if he can explain. MJ asks why, after all of his "I can never be in a relationship, I can never have anyone close to me because no one is safe" crap, that he goes and does something like this. Peter tells her that Kitty is a mutant with powers who can defend herself and phase through stuff, meaning she can't be hurt. And MJ says that she's perfect for him, and then asks if he loves her. Peter tells her no. At least not yet. And then he explains the whole Krakoa mutant hunting TV thing, and MJ interrupts and asks if he knew Kitty when they were dating. Peter tells her that he did, and before he explains how, she gets up and asks how she can be his friend when he clearly isn't hers. She walks away, and Peter loses himself and says that maybe she should find someone else. MJ whips around and asks if he's ready to see her making out with someone. One of the guys on the football team or the basketball team that keeps hitting on her, maybe. She tells him that she's mad at him. She hates this situation that they have fallen into, and she doesn't want to talk to him anymore. And then she walks away, leaving Peter alone. Later that day, as the sky becomes overcast, Peter arrives at the Daily Bugle, and everyone kind of hangs around and watches as two police officers interview someone about Ben Urich. And Peter overhears that Ben hasn't been seen since he checked out of the lobby last night around 6:30 and asks Betty Brant what's going on. She reveals that Ben never even made it home last night, and he hasn't been in at all today. Peter gets worried and sets his backpack down on his little desk and spots Ben's article. Peter heads out into the ill evening after work and curses himself for what happened, because he really wanted to tell Ben that he saw a real vampire, but then realizes that if he told Ben, an investigative reporter, Ben would no doubt ask more and more questions until he realized the truth about who Spider-Man is. And now he's missing. Spider-Man swings through the city to Jennifer Grunwald's apartment right as a giant wolf is thrown from the 6th-story window and turns into a swarm of bats, and then the bats fly back into the window and reform into a fucking wolf. Spider-Man swings inside and finds Jennifer holding Ben in her grasp. He kicks her in the head and says that he always wanted to know what it looked like when someone was actually cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Then the wolf punches him twice. Spider-Man battles the wolf, and Ben lies paralyzed, trying to come to terms with the fact that he got bitten by a fucking vampire. The giant wolf eventually gets atop the spandex-clad superhero and snarls that Peter is interfering. Spidey kicks the beast off and into the wall, and before it comes back for the attack, it's grabbed by motherfucking Morbius. That's right. It's Morbin time. Morbius demands that the Hellspawn stand down and chastises it for daring to stand against him. Because Ultimate Morbius is a legitimate vampire. He's not a fucking weird science vampire or whatever. He is a descendant of Vlad Tepes Dracul, meaning he's also a distant relative of Victor Von Doom, aka Dr. Doom. Spider-Man is very confused and just starts webbing. The giant wolf attacks Spidey. Morbius tosses Jennifer away and goes for the wolf before grabbing Spider-Man and ordering him to leave. Then he plunges Spidey into the apartment bathroom and away from the danger. Then the vampiric monstrosity threatens Morbius before dipping out of the window and turning into a bunch of bats. Jen, however, doesn't get the hint and tries to attack Morbius until he stakes her and she erupts into flames, allowing Spider-Man to steal away with Ben. He races to the nearest hospital, begging them to help Ben Urich. Spidey tells him he was bitten by a fucking vampire, and the doctor doesn't believe him, so he grabs the guy and tells him that he has fucking spider powers and a vampire bit this man. Then a cop runs up and Spidey webs him before he does anything. Peter pleads with the doctor to help him, and the doctor demands that Spider-Man leave the premises and promises to do what he can for the man's life. And later into the night, after Ben has been examined and put into a room, the doctors are confused and don't really know what to do, and S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't getting back to them. And once the room is empty, Morbius enters, and he slowly lumbers over Ben's bed and prepares to perform his dark deed, when Spider-Man leaps out of the ceiling and kicks him in the face and tries to punch him. Morbius catches it and tells the kid to knock it off, because Morbius is Ben Urich's only hope of survival. Morbius explains that if Ben is bitten twice more over this night, then he's gonna be a vampire. But through whatever magics, and because Morbius is Dracula's son, he can reverse the process. Spider-Man just has to trust him. Spider-Man does not trust him because he is in a manic episode after seeing all this crazy shit, and Morbius launches him out of the room into the hallway, where these fucking things show up. These horrible creatures of the night gang up on Spider-Man, and one of them grabs him and sinks her fangs fangs into his neck. Spider-Man loses his mind and just unleashes all of his might and fury against the creatures, and then Morbius runs out and kills them. And Spider-Man stands there frozen in shock because he just got turned into a vampire. Morbius rips off his mask, gives his wound a little sniff, and tells him he'll be fine because his blood is tainted and the wound will heal. Then he points Spider-Man back into the room and shows him that Ben Urich is back to normal. Morbius then explains that he made a promise on his mother's grave to undo his father's unholy curse, and tells Spider-Man that he hopes that the next time they cross paths, Spider-Man will be a bit more mature about everything. Then he dissipates into smoke and disappears out of the window. The next day, Peter and MJ are in biology class. MJ's calmed down and taken some time to relax and asks if Peter's alright because he looks really freaked out. Peter pulls his turtleneck down and MJ looks on, silently freaking out. He tells her he's okay, and then he whispers that it's happening again. He's seeing things that he shouldn't be. Things a high school student shouldn't have to worry about. Things that Daredevil warned him about when they first met. He tells her that he thought things were getting better, that things were lifting up and looking brighter and better for him. But they're not. And Peter has a horrible feeling that things are going to get really bad. And he stares at the dead frog lying cold before him. And he begins to cry. And MJ hugs him. And he hugs her. The end. Released in 2006, written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Mark Bagley. This is Ultimate Spider-Man Clone Saga. The book actually begins several days after the previous volume. More specifically, it begins several days after Spider-Man fought a couple of vampires and met Morbius. Peter and his girlfriend, Kitty Pryde, have been talking on the phone, and Peter has finally told her about his breakdown that he had at school and how MJ helped to calm him down and comforted him. And Kitty gets upset that he's doing this with his now ex-girlfriend instead of his girlfriend. Peter tells her that they've been friends since second grade, and that's all that there is to it. Peter asks if she's mad that he didn't call her because he did, and no one answered. And Kitty starts to cry and tells him that she is his girlfriend and that she is the person that he should be coming to and telling about these things to find help and security and comfort. And Peter just sits silently and then tells her that she is. Kitty comes back that she clearly isn't because MJ is who he went to. And Peter reminds her that he's not the only person in the world that she talks to. She has all of the X-Men. He has no friends. No one who knows about his life other than Kitty and MJ, and like half of his supervillains, but I don't think they're in the mood for a chat. Kitty tells him it's different, because Peter is still in love with her. And Peter stops talking, and Kitty tells him that he didn't break up with MJ because he hates her or didn't want to be with her. He broke up with her because he thought he had to keep her from getting hurt. And then Aunt May gets home and Peter tells Kitty that he has to go and hangs up. And Kitty sits in her bed at the mansion, angry that Peter didn't say something like, "No, I'm not in love with her. I like you." Because for her, that's all it would have taken. Then she crashes her head into the pillow and begins to cry. The next day, MJ finds Peter at the end of school and asks how he's doing. Peter tells her that he hasn't come across any more vampires, so that's pretty good. She asks what he's doing later today, and he tells her the same thing he does every day: swing around. She tells him he needs a break from all the web swinging and wall crawling, and invites him to his favorite place, the shopping mall. The two sit in the food court, and Peter thanks her and tells her that he appreciates that she's trying to be friends again, and MJ reminds him that she also made him his new suit that he never thanked her for. And as Peter and Mary laugh, Mark Raxton rocks past, and he says hi to MJ and asks if this is the famous Peter Parker. Mary tells him it is, and Mark smiles, remembering the conversation that he had with MJ several months prior, and says, "Good for her," and then heads off. Peter asks what that was all about, and MJ reveals that she and Mark went out on a date once. Kind of a date, I guess. And Peter tells her to, forget it. Then they eat in silence for a little bit until MJ blurts out that nothing happened, and she wound up talking about Peter all night because it was still early on after they broke up, and she kind of drove Mark away. Peter asks if she's gone out with anyone else since they've broken up, and MJ comes back that she and Johnny Storm actually got engaged over the summer. But then she actually just says that everyone is so sure that that she and Peter are gonna wind up back together. And then she, like, makes a reference to the Scarlet Letter and says that she may as well be wearing the letter P sewn into all of her outfits. Peter compliments the reference and apologizes for standing in her way of moving on. MJ tells him that that's not what's happening, and he jokes that he is just guilt-ridden by nature. MJ asks how Kitty is, and Peter asks not to go there, because she and the X-Men are grounded ever since the whole Krakoa footage leak. Peter kind of lets it slip that, to him, it feels like Kitty doesn't really know him. She more knows Spider-Man. You know, probably because Peter won't let her come around when he's Peter Parker. So he's to blame for this as well, but it doesn't really matter where that conversation's going, because a fucking mall kiosk is launched through the food court and pandemonium sets. MJ listens to Peter and gets the fuck out of there as he moves to suit up. Spider-Man then rescues a child in the nick of time as the public scream that Spider-Man's trashing the mall and kidnapping kids. He hands the child over and heads back to find the Scorpion. The Scorpion manically tells Spidey that he's not gonna fall for it. He knows all of Spider-Man's tricks. And Spidey tries to calm the stranger down when the police arrive, and the Scorpion whips around and fires his Scorpion venom? Toxins? Do Scorpions have venom? Do Scorpions have venom? Yes. Yeah, I thought so. I don't know why I would ever second-guess my Scorpion knowledge. Anyway, the Scorpion fires his venom at the officers, striking several of them and horribly burning their bodies with its venomous properties. Then Scorpion strikes Spidey through the mall as more police arrive and open fire. Scorpion fires his tail beam at them until Spidey webs him into a column and tries to wrangle the insectoid but is kicked off. Several cops tackle Spider-Man as Scorpion keeps killing him with his venom. Then they open fire and Spidey webs their guns, leaving him open to a punch that launches him into a Spencer's Gifts. Scorpion runs after him, talking to himself more than he is to Spider-Man, and the two brawl it out until Spidey finally gets the upper hand and smashes open the Scorpion's helmet, revealing his own face. And later that afternoon, MJ arrives at home and tells her mom about the big attack at the mall and how Spider-Man came in and saved everybody. MJ's mom hugs her and complains about how crazy the world has become. And MJ tells her that she's all right and that she just came straight home. Then she heads upstairs, retrieves her diary, unaware of a figure that is hidden inside of her closet. And the person slowly exits, and MJ realizes at the last second that someone else is in the room. And then she is grabbed. And a little bit later, her mom heads up to her room to tell her that she got something in the mail from Bernard College, but she finds her daughter's bedroom totally empty and the window left open. Flashback time! It's not a big flashback. I guess it's not really a flashback now that I think about it. We're just kind of jumping back in time to slightly earlier in the day. Geez, I made this way more confusing than it ever needed to be. Outside of Queens and inside the Baxter Building, Johnny and Ben watch a movie as Reed tests something out on Johnny. He's turned his urine into drinkable clean water. Johnny freaks out that he just drank piss as Reed explains that he finally watched Waterworld and wanted to try it out for himself. Ben is more surprised that Reed has actually seen a movie, and Reed doesn't really understand why everyone's freaking out because it's literally water right now, and Sue reminds him that there are some things that are still socially unacceptable. Then the security system alerts of a breach, and they find Spider-Man clinging to the window. Reed tries to deactivate the defense measures, but it's too late and Spidey is zapped. The FF managed to get the two inside, and Spider-Man wakes up not long after and explains the whole Scorpion situation, and that he needs Reed to tell him who the Scorpion is. Reed prepares to run a blood test, and Spidey asks if he can do it so that Nick Fury doesn't know what they're up to, and Reed smirks and tells him he can definitely do that. And sometime later, Reed gets the results as Scorpion is put into a suspended animation device back-to-tank thing, and the DNA test turns out he's 94% Peter Parker. Peter freaks out as Sue notes that the tail has been illegally biografted into his spinal cord. And Peter panics and rips off his mask and explains that he is Peter Parker. Johnny recognizes him from his brief stint at Midtown High earlier that year and is shocked. And not long after in the Triskelion, Reed Richards contacts General Nick Fury, and Fury answers and immediately tells Reed that he has not changed his mind about either the Skrull Initiative or the multiversal probes. Reed tells him that he's calling about something else, the government's stance on human cloning. Fury quickly reminds him that it is off limits and too morally ambiguous for the suits in Washington. Reed asks if Fury is aware of anyone doing it recently, and Fury says he does not know of anyone, and reminds Reed that he better not be doing it either. Reed assures him that he's not cloning anything. He's just making weird little long-headed babies of the Ultimates in a virtual petri dish. Reed comes up with some excuse that he was reading an article and it got him thinking, and Fury thanks him for wasting what few precious minutes of his day he has to himself, and hangs up. Spidey says Fury has gotta be lying, and Reed assures him that Fury is actually telling the truth because Reed has installed some sort of virtual sensors that read body temperature and pulse rates, and Fury's didn't budge, meaning that he has nothing to do with this. And then Reed looks over the Scorpion again, noting how brilliant it really is. Reed asks for a blood sample of Peter's and asks how he got his powers, and Peter explains the spider, and Reed thinks he's joking and takes a sample out of Peter's blood and notes that it has the same oddities as the Scorpion's. Then Peter realizes that it's getting late and he needs to get home before Aunt May or else she'll kick him out. So he launches himself out of the window and swings away. So Peter swings through the city as the sun sets and reflects beautifully against the towering glass skyscrapers and over the Queensboro Bridge and into Queens itself, and finally Forest Hills as he freaks out over every single aspect of every single thing that has happened today. He comes up with an excuse for Aunt May as he runs up the sidewalk to the house and gets to the door, and May swings it open and asks if MJ is with him. He tells her he was in the city getting his paycheck, and May tells him that MJ is missing. And she went missing sometime after school, when she got home. She rings Anna Watson to let her know that she's not with Peter, and Peter quickly asks if he can help look for her, and May lets him, and he runs off. He races to the nearby warehouse that he and MJ used as a hideout and calls out to her. MJ?
Whoa, sorry, Tiger. This is awkward.
Who are you?
Who do I look like?
I don't care. Where's MJ?
I'm not her, if that's what you're thinking.
Where is she?
I don't know. I don't get to be a part of that part.
I want to know what's going on. Where is she? There is nothing I won't do to protect her.
Yeah, great job so far.
Peter lunges at the mysterious Spider-Girl as she easily dodges all of his attacks. Also, she's able to organically shoot webbing from her fingers, and she webs Peter's face and launches him into a crumbling pillar, which collapses a loft of the warehouse down on top of him. She walks over, checks his pulse, and breathes a sigh of relief that he's okay. She tells a wounded Peter that she should not have come here, but she just had to know. And then she promises to get MJ back for him, and to help the others. And she swings away into the night. Peter wakes up not long after and leaps to the roof, hoping to spot the mysterious Spider-Girl, but finds nothing. And then he wonders if MJ snuck into his old house, and he races there, and he spots a young woman entering through the front door. And he leaps down to the street and cautiously enters, where he finds a very confused Gwen Stacy asking when they moved. And elsewhere, Mary Jane Watson wakes up inside of a giant glass container. She calls out for anybody to come help her, wondering where she is and who took her here. And then a figure makes himself known from the shadows. He tells her to calm down, and she demands to know why Peter put her into this container thing. And Peter tells her that he now knows how to protect her, and that he should have thought of this years ago. Peter assures her that everything's gonna be okay, because he's smarter than he's ever been letting on, and he realized, once he started thinking smarter, that Mary Jane can't possibly survive all of this unless she has superpowers. And then he steps out into the light, and MJ screams in fear as the figure before her emerges, and it echoes through the abandoned Oscorp facility. And back in Queens, Peter demands to know who the blonde girl is standing before him. Gwen grows more confused and begins crying, unable to control herself, and Peter screams that she died in their backyard, and he saw it. Gwen asks him again what is happening, and what Peter is talking about, and Peter falls to the ground believing he's just gone insane, and that this is all a hallucination. But Gwen kneels down and touches him, and Peter realizes that she is as real as the spider has 8 legs. That's a saying, that's a real saying, don't look it up. Elsewhere, the moon climbs high beyond the Baxter building as Reed and Sue wake up Mr. Parker the Scorpion, and they introduce themselves, assure that he is safe and that they want to help him. And then Reed and Sue also discuss just how horrifying this experiment was, the things that were done to this person, this clone. Because, as I mentioned earlier, the tail is biografted into his spine, which means that removing any aspect of it or the suit would kill him. And they reluctantly agree to contact Nick Fury, because there's clearly something bigger going on here. And back in Queens, Peter listens to Gwen as she explains that she can't remember much, but what she does remember is hazy and dreamlike. She remembers waking up in a hospital, and there were dead bodies. And Peter asks how she got here, and a flash of the city from above appears in her mind, but she can't remember, and asks if she really did die. Peter confirms, and Gwen tells him that she just doesn't know what to say. Then they hug, and Peter checks her weird little medical bracelet when a light flashes into the home, and Aunt May opens the door and finds them. May screams, stumbling out of their old home and running off into the street. Peter mutters that this is it. This is the moment he's been dreading, and Gwen asks what he means as he takes her hand and they head after May. Not long after, May heads into her house and grabs the phone right before Peter and Gwen arrive. Put the phone down. Just please put the phone down. And sit down, please. There's no easy way to say this. I'm Spider-Man. And I have been. I put on the costume and I try to help people. It's me. And Gwen was killed by a monster looking for me. And now she's back somehow. And I just found out she's not dead. And I'm terrified that MJ's out there and in trouble because of me, and we're trying to figure out what's going on.
Say the first part again.
I'm Spider-Man.
Prove it.
I'd rather not.
Prove it! This whole time.
Ever since I got bit by that spider.
Aunt Norman Osborn, all that trouble with him? That's why?
Yes.
And this? Is this really Gwen Stacy? Even after I saw her dead body with my own eyes?
I don't know what this is. I mean, there's clearly something...
Stop. Get out.
But...
Take whatever this is and get out of my house. You are not my son. I gave up an entire life to take care of you, and you've done nothing but lie to me. Take your ghost and your lies and get out.
Hey, May. When did you get so feisty? Take it easy on him. He's only a kid. And he's trying to make the best of an impossible situation. Dad? That's right, if this nightmare of a night could not get any worse or weirder, Richard Parker, Peter's dad, who he thought has been dead for, like, over 10 years, is back. Richard heads into the kitchen and tells Peter that there is a lot they need to talk about and apologizes for showing up out of the blue. May watches in hate-filled silence as her eyes begin watering. Richard grabs Peter and hugs him, and May explodes. She screams that she's had enough Parker drama in her life. Her sister married Richard, not her, and she wants them all out. Peter asks if May knew about this, that his dad was alive, and she says that she did. He actually came to her several months ago after work, but she demanded that Richard stay away from Peter. Richard asks how Gwen's feeling, and assures her that no one's gonna hurt her, he just wants to check her pulse, and asks if she's hungry. Then he helps himself to the fridge and finds some soda and leftover pizza, and invites everyone to sit down and have a bite, and let's all talk this over. Back at the Baxter building, Nick Fury has arrived, and Reed finishes explaining the situation. Then Fury calls in an order to get the Spider Slayers ready and sent to Queens. Meanwhile, Mary Jane Watson is strapped into a large device with various IVs stuck in her, and Kane tells her that even though the lab is in disrepair and he had to improvise, he's sure he'll be able to make her better. Then he's kicked in the face by Tarantula. He demands that Kane get away from Mary Jane and stop this wicked experiment, and the two fight through the lab as Tarantula uses his 6 arms to kick Kane's ass until Kane slams his decayed fist into Tarantula's head, rendering him unconscious. Then he smiles back to MJ and tells her everything's gonna be okay. And at the Parker residence, Peter, Gwen, Richard sit down and eat some pizza as May silently watches. Richard then goes on to explain that after he and Eddie Brock Sr. were financially ruined by Trask Industries, they were actually given a final offer to sign over everything and get a big payout. But at the airport, he couldn't bring himself to do it. He could not keep working for Trask. He and Mary got into a huge fight, and everyone else except for him boarded the plane. Then the plane crash happened, killing everyone, including himself, because he was logged as on board, thereby making him legally dead. And he didn't know what to do with himself or how to bring himself back into everyone's life. And he was lost until a man named Henry Gyrich from the CIA contacted him and offered him a nice position. Peter asks how he's tied to Gwen in all of this, and Richard tells him that the position he was offered in the CIA was to continue the genetic work that Richard had been doing, underground and in secret, of course, to ensure that the US government didn't have to rely on people like Nick Fury, or S.H.I.E.L.D., or his proposed Ultimates at the time, to, handle everything. They could make their own super soldiers. And after years and years of work, amateur footage was eventually confiscated by the CIA of the symbiote's attack in Queens. But the footage also caught his son Peter on camera. And after that, Richard was allowed to watch Peter from afar, and he eventually did make contact with May, but he was unable to contact Peter lest he reveal their operation to both Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. And as Richard is finally about to reveal how Gwen is alive, floodlights ignite the building, and Nick Fury calls out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has the home surrounded and orders everyone to slowly step outside in a calm manner, because the neighborhood's been evacuated and he's not afraid to take action. As Richard tells Peter to put on the suit, because Fury isn't here to talk, he's here to fight. Then Gwen wrenches in pain, and she transforms into Carnage. Carnage crashes out of the window as Aunt May stumbles from a heart attack and falls before Peter catches her. Carnage begins ripping and attacking into the Spider Slayers and S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers as Fury alerts everyone that they are under attack. And at the Triskelion, the Tinkerer engages the Slayers. Fury orders him to just open fire. Energy beams begin riddling the Parker home as Peter clutches May in his arms. Richard tries to get him to leave, telling his son that he'll take care of her, but he needs to stop Fury and the army he's brought. And Peter explodes out of the house and attacks Fury, telling him that his aunt is inside and she's going to die. And Fury places him under arrest as the Carnage symbiote continues tearing through Slayer units. But Peter grabs Fury by the neck and he's shot by a Slayer and falls to the ground. And Fury prepares to trank him when his handgun explodes and the Fantastic Four arrive, demanding to know what the fuck is going on. Fury tells him to get their little asses back to the Baxter building because this is a domestic military operation. Then Ben is attacked by Carnage and he gets launched several blocks away into a Burger King. Reed shouts that Fury can't just take over a neighborhood and ruin a kid's life because he found out someone made a clone of him. And Fury demands that they stand down or else he'll take them in too. Peter cries that his aunt is having a heart attack and she's still in the house with his dad. And Reed is shocked because he knows that Peter's dad died years ago. Sue and Reed then race inside the home as Reed is attacked by Carnage, and he's fascinated by it. So Sue walks in and finds Richard Parker kneeling over an unconscious May. She runs to him and asks if she is an acute myocardial infraction or if it was just a stroke. And he is unable to answer. She tells him that the FF will take care of this, and then creates an invisible gurney to carry May out and a protective bubble around them, and then lifts the three up into the air into the Fantastic Car, and Johnny asks if Peter needs a lift, but Peter tells him no. And they launch themselves through the Spider Army towards Fury. Tinkerer alerts the General that he's locked on the symbiote, and Fury orders him to use full power, and a massive blast of energy ruptures through the Queen's neighborhood. Ben finally arrives back, and everyone kind of just stares in shock at a nude Gwen Stacy. Then she falls unconscious as S.H.I.E.L.D. begin to detain her. Johnny, Ben, and Peter watch in shock as Fury marches over and tells Peter that he's either taken him in or he's taking him out. And he draws a gun on Peter Parker. Fury tells him he doesn't get to be Spider-Man anymore. Not after being at the center of the biggest genetic fucking disaster since the Hulk. And Peter cries out, asking what he did. Fury tells him he didn't do anything. It was his clones. And he apologizes to the kid. And back at the Oscorp building, Kane frees MJ and she asks what he did to her. Kane reveals that he filled her with Oz formula, and now she won't get hurt. And MJ freaks out and wrenches over in pain and transforms into a demonic goblin. A demo goblin, if you will. And it kind of looks like this old Don Heck art from this Marvel comic called If a Man Be Mad. Doesn't it? Not long after, Peter Parker is detained as Reed tells Fury that this is a major violation of his rights, and Fury reminds him that he's the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. and his job is to protect the world using any and every measure at his disposal. And he doesn't need to fucking explain himself to some 20-something-year-old nerd who has the powers of a deflated balloon. Then Spider-Girl swings in and grabs Peter and leaps away. Johnny flies after them and follows them into the city, but loses sight. And in an alleyway below, Spider-Girl frees Peter and instructs him to follow her. They head to New Jersey and they ride atop a semi-truck, and Spider-Girl removes her mask to reveal that she is yet another clone of Peter Parker. Peter asks if there's more, and she tells him yes, there are, and that they need to find him and help him. And he asks if his father had a hand in making her as well, and she recounts to him how she was born. She remembers waking up to find Dr. Ben Reilly, and he explained how she was brought into the world a week prior and that her body is still forming and maturing. But he tells her not to worry about all those memories that she has of herself as Peter Parker, and assures her that that is not who she is, and that she will be safe. And he exposits that the goal within this phase of work was to create a perfect clone of Peter Parker to obtain his spider powers, but in her case, they took some creative chromosomal liberties. He then explained that they'll have a psych team coming in soon to strip her of his memories and implant her with all new ones. And he tells her that her new life will involve her being a special agent and tells her how cool that is. Then he opened her file and informs her that her name is Jessica Drew, codename Spider-Woman. About a month later, Jessica Drew Spider-Woman is unveiled in her costume. Dr. Reilly tells her that she will finally become Jessica Drew today and introduces a psychic named Cassandra Webb, who will implant her with new memories. Then a wall collapses as the Stacy symbiote escapes captivity and goes on a rampage, killing Cassandra Webb and Dr. Reilly amongst many others, before it finally crashes through the ceiling, destroying whatever mechanical workings were in there that kept the other clones locked in their cells. Peter clones and Jessica all meet, and Kane demands that they find MJ because she needs help. Then Richard Parker tells them that they need to get back into their rooms and to wait for the power to come back on. And Jessica tells everyone to leave Peter and the rest of them alone. But the other three race off for an escape, and she apologizes to Peter for ruining his life, even more than it already was. Peter asks if she knows who took MJ, and Jessica tells him that it was probably Kane, but if that's true, then things are very bad. Then she tells him to jump off the truck and leads him over to the Oscorp building, and they trek through the abandoned complex and find the Demo Goblin attacking Kane. Jessica webs Tarantula and pulls him to safety, and then wakes him up, and Tarantula informs them that Kane injected MJ with Oz formula. MJ, the Demo Goblin, roars, and Peter stands before her, and she sees him and shifts back to her normal self. And Peter fucking decks him. Jessica covers up MJ as Peter demands to know how Kane got his hands on Oz formula. Then Dr. Otto Octavius arrives with Nick Fury and the Fantastic Four, and he reveals that he is their father. Slight flashback time. Again, it's just jumping back in time. It's not really a flashback. At the Xavier School, Kitty and the X-Men watch the news about a S.H.I.E.L.D. task force evacuating a neighborhood in Forest Hills, Queens. Kitty tries to call Peter, but when he doesn't pick up, she panics, and the news cuts to an interview with a local resident, Mary Jane Watson's mother, pleading for help finding her lost daughter, and Kitty races through the mansion to find Professor X. She phases through a wall and pleads that they need to go to Queens because Peter is in trouble. S.H.I.E.L.D. and Nick Fury shut down his neighborhood, and everybody's gonna get really hurt if they don't help. Xavier tries to calm her down, but she shouts that if this was his girlfriend, they would have been in the fucking X-Jet by now. And Cyclops smirks and says that they're going to Queens. Elsewhere, Sue and Richard bring May into the hospital, and as the doctors take her in, Sue glances over at Richard Parker and asks a nurse if she can borrow a microscope, and they excitedly let the Sue Storm use their equipment. So she pricks Richard's finger and draws a blood sample and inspects it, and then uses a computer to get a blood sample match requested from the Baxter building. And back at Oscorp, Fury orders the Parker clones to all stand against the wall. And Reed is shocked that Otto Octavius was behind this and asks how he was able to get so many variations. Jessica, however, is horrified that Otto Octavius is the one who made her, and Otto smiles and tells her she's welcome. Then Fury puts a gun up to her as she tries to attack Otto, and Octavius asks for everyone to stay civil and act like adults. Peter panics because MJ has Oz formula in her system, and Johnny tells Reed that this is really creeping him out and asks if Reed can save Mary Jane. Fury tells him that the Fantastic Four are not a part of this and that they need to fuck off. So Johnny flames his fists and argues with Fury that Mary Jane is a civilian and that Reed needs to help cure her. Peter picks her up and hands her off to Ben, and Reed promises that he will do everything he can. Then Kane launches himself after MJ, but he's gunned down by S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. And then Jessica punches one, but before she's shot, Fury fires into the air and orders everyone to calm the hell down. He reluctantly agrees to let the Fantastic Four take Mary Jane and orders them to fuck off. And then Ben tells Otto to take his shitty bowl cut and shove it up his ass as they leave.
Fury, I appreciate your good work in what is a very tense situation, but this is our problem, and we'll have transport ready to take all of these subjects back to safekeeping.
Doctor, you ain't taking shit. You got me? You have a lot to answer for.
But I don't have to answer to you.
The minute your little house of horrors dropped on civilian property, you better believe you do. You're under arrest.
Ha! We'll see. Do you wonder why you didn't know this project was happening? I made a deal with the federal government to work for them, to help them design a new breed of super soldier. And it seems that there are a great many people in the United States government that truly hate Nick Fury. They don't want you as the only person in the country with his finger on the superhero button. So, thanks to the good people at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Projects, Research and Development, I get to continue my good work.
I don't think so.
Oh, I have credentials. I have rights. Oh, and I'm not in your jurisdiction.
How did you?
We had a Peter Parker blood sample. Peter Parker. Confiscated from your good friend, Dr. Connor's assistant, Ben Reilly. He was a good man. And with it, we went to work.
Don't.
Oh, are you gonna cry? Spider-Man gonna cry? This isn't about you. This is about my work. And it just so happens that my work completely perverts and destroys every single part of you and your life.
And back at the hospital, Sue gets to the Baxter Building system to return the blood match. And it is a 99.342% match for Peter Parker. And Richard happens to see it and walks away. Back at Oscorp, Otto continues his tirade, noting that he has made the most important scientific discovery since Bruce Banner discovered gamma radiation mutation, and that he is the one who made the discovery. Not Reed Richards, not Osborn, not Tony Stark, Otto Octavius. And by this time next year, when 1,000 Thors descend into the Middle East and put an end to that situation, he will receive a Nobel Prize and a Medal of Honor. But he assures Peter that he will thank him in his speech. And Peter realizes that Richard isn't his father. Otto laughs at him for truly deluding himself so far as to really believe that that thing was his dad. And he tells Peter that he thought he was smarter than that. And Peter begins to cry, and then the hate overtakes him. And he stares Otto down. Otto tells him to stare all he wants. He's not the bad guy in all this because all the guns in the room are pointed at Peter Parker. Peter turns to Fury and offers himself up if Fury sends himself and his men out for some coffee for a few minutes. And Otto laughs again that Fury isn't in charge of anything, because the feds are already on their way, and they will use whatever force necessary. Fury orders his agents and the Spider Slayers out of the building to secure the perimeter. And Otto begins to panic and asks what the fuck he's doing. And Otto begins to panic and asks what the hell he's doing. And Fury notes that he's not in charge of the situation. He can't do anything. Doop-de-doo. And they leave. Then Tarantula attacks Otto and holds him down as Peter lunges at him, and the metal all around them in the lab begins rocking apart and hoisting into the air as Otto uses his ferrokinesis to plunge a rusted pipe through Tarantula's chest, pinning him into a wall, and he begins forming new arms out of the lab itself and gloats that he is more powerful than Peter can possibly imagine. And meanwhile, at the Baxter building, Reed tries to awaken MJ when Dr. Storm arrives. Reed explains the situation as Mary Jane slowly rouses awake, and Johnny asks his dad if they can save her. Then MJ sits up in panic and screams out and begins transforming, and she attacks Ben, sending him through the containment bubble housing the Scorpion. And at the hospital, Sue speaks to Richard on the rooftop, and she asks him to look at his hands, wondering if he thinks that those look like the hands of a 40-year-old man, and she regretfully informs him that he is not Richard Parker. The real Richard died years ago, when Peter was a little kid, and she tells him that he's a clone. That's why he didn't know what to do when May collapsed, and Richard shouts that she's a liar because he remembers his life. Sue tells him that his DNA matches Peter's almost exactly, and Richard crumbles to the floor. Back at Oscorp, Fury comes face-to-face with FBI agent Henry Gyrich. Fury tells him that he and his boys can go on home, but Gyrich demands to know where Octavius is, and Fury plays dumb and says that as far as he's aware, he's still in jail. Meanwhile, Doc Ock unleashes his full fury as the two final spider people are left standing. Peter is launched across the room and Jessica is slammed in the face as she tries to web Ock, and a whirlwind of metal soars around them. As back in the Baxter building, Reed tries to contain MJ Goblin. The Scorpion falls out of his containment unit and wakes up to see the brawl, and the Demo Goblin MJ spots him, sees Peter's face, and begins reverting back to human form and falls unconscious, along with the Scorpion. Peter goes head-to-head with Dr. Otto Octavius once again, as Otto demands that he finally admit defeat. Peter rips out one of his tentacles as Jessica swings and kicks him in the jaw, knocking his glasses off and causing Otto to angrily form a tornado of metal through the massive lab, crumbling and cannibalizing the building itself. He screams for Peter Parker to finally die as he lashes out erratically at Peter and Jessica. The two corral him and maneuver and simultaneously pulverize Otto across the room. And Otto slams into the ground, and everything in the air falls after him. And everything is finally, once again, calm. Jessica finds Kane's dead body. Peter tells her that they need to go. He made a promise to Fury to surrender, and Jessica tells him to forget that. But he tells her that MJ and May are far more important than his own safety. So Jessica leaps away and escapes the building and tells him that she's done arguing with herself and disappears. And a few minutes later, Peter emerges, dragging Otto's body with him as Gyrich argues with Fury. And Peter begins arguing with Agent Gyrich. Then Johnny arrives, swoops him up, and flies away. And coincidentally enough, the clone of Richard Parker has begun rapidly aging for some reason, even though none of the others are. I guess because he was rapidly aged to be older, it's affected him in some way, and he's decaying like all Marvel clones end up doing. And he quietly asks if Sue Storm will be Peter's friend. And even though Peter isn't really his son, he still cares for him. And he tells her that Peter will need friends. He's going to need people to help him, especially after this. and he needs someone there to watch out for him and be there to support him, especially because he's an orphan who has kind of learned to not think to rely on other people and just to keep to himself. And Sue tells him that of course she'll help Peter. And as Richard sits down, looking over the city, he thanks her for everything. Johnny arrives back at the Baxter building where they find Reed and Dr. Storm isolating the Oz compound and preparing to totally remove it. MJ flares up and her body writhes in pain as the operation commences, and finally, minutes later, she comes to, and she sees Peter. And she sits up, and Reed and Storm tell her to just relax for now. But MJ asks if Peter is really him, and everyone assures her that he is. Peter gives her a very brief rundown of what happened, and Johnny whispers that she should probably hug him after all of this. And the two embrace, and she asks why he's apologizing if he had nothing to do with all of this. And he jokes that he's just guilt-ridden by nature. And then he begins crying and tells Mary that he loves her. And she's been right this whole time, and he almost lost her. And he loves her so much. And Peter asks if she'll be okay, and Dr. Storm and Reed assure him that the antidote has done its job. And Reed asks MJ to stay a little longer so they can keep an eye on her, and Peter says that he needs to go find his aunt. But before he leaves, Reed stops him and lets him know that they can cure him too. Johnny says no one's gonna blame him if he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore, especially after tonight. And Peter asks if he can think it over, and thanks the Fantastic Four for everything they've done. Then Johnny flies him to the hospital, and after they leave, Nick Fury arrives at the Baxter building, having contacted the Ultimates to deal with this mess, and tells the group that he's this close to bringing them all up on charges. And Ben asks why Fury's being such a fucking asshole about all this. Fury tells him that Peter was the weapon chosen by the real bad guys. Ben tells him that none of this was the kid's fault. And Fury tells them that the situation needs to be contained. Then MJ interrupts, and she tells him that Peter looks up to Nick Fury like a father, and asks if he even realizes that. And she even reveals a very close secret that Peter told her, which is that when he wants to grow up, he wants to be like Nick Fury. He wants to be on the Ultimates. He wants to be the greatest hero in the world. And she asks that after all of this, after everything that he's been through, Fury's just gonna throw him in jail? And later at the hospital, Peter and Johnny arrive to find Sue in May's quarters. She tells him about his father, and Peter interrupts that he already figured that out. And she also reveals that he didn't make it. Sue gets ready to leave with Johnny, and Peter thanks her. She tells him it's not necessary.
I know I should have told you. I know that now. The reason I didn't do it was because I was scared of all of this. And it happened anyway. And the same thing happened with MJ. And I was so scared of this one thing happening to either of you that I tried so hard to make it not happen, and it still did. And I know why. I was lying to you. I didn't trust you as much as you trusted me, and what hurt the most was when you said I wasn't your son, because to me, I am your son, and I have to be because you're my mom, and you're all I have. What now?
Wait outside. Do you know why I came to your house tonight? Do you know why I had the spider slayers at your house tonight?
No, I don't.
Because the situation was in the open, out of control, and an immediate threat to civilian life. And you were at the center of it.
And you had an army of me slaying robot things just ready to go? What, in case of one day a bunch of clones of me happened to be invented and just went nuts? Oh wow, that's some forward thinking.
No. I made them to take you down.
Why?
Because I'm a study of human moves, kid. And with all that's happened to you, it looked to me like we were witnessing the next big supervillain. And I wanted to be ready.
Me? The next big supervillain?
Kid, the stuff that's happened to you, well, I thought you were well within your rights to snap. And it's my job to be ready. Your parents, your uncle, the Osborns, vampires, mutants, Doc Ock, Kingpin, you flipping out on me. It looked like you were gonna snap.
But I didn't.
No, you didn't. And after all this night, you didn't.
So, you were wrong.
Yes.
Thank you.
In fact, I see the opposite is true. And I'm watching the birth of someone really special.
Are you going to see Reed Richards?
Yeah, actually, I gotta run back there. Why?
Can you tell him no thanks? And that I'll pass on the offer? Aunt May slowly begins to wake up in a daze as Jean Grey and Kitty sneak through the hospital, psychically blinding themselves to the whole faculty, and Kitty pleads with Professor X to make Peter's aunt forget what happened tonight. Charles refuses, and Kitty screams at him that Peter didn't want her to know. This was all a mistake. But Charles tells her that it's not his place to do so, because life has consequences. And Kitty begins crying and tells Professor X that she hates him and runs off. And Jean wonders if maybe she's right. But Charles assures her that she isn't. And Jean looks in and sees Aunt May gazes up and smiles, and she tells Peter that the costume is pretty garish. And then they hug, and Jean leaves to find Kitty. Back in Queens, Agent Sharon Carter informs the media and the citizens of Forest Hills that the attack was by an unnaturally powered villain. No one in the neighborhood was a target, but thanks to Nick Fury and his SHIELD team, they were able to evacuate the neighborhood before any casualties. Then she clearly states that this was not a mutant act of terrorism, and that SHIELD would like to publicly thank Spider-Man for his invaluable help in the situation. And she tells them that he is the true hero, and that everyone in the neighborhood owes him a debt of thanks for his selfless behavior, as Agent Jimmy Woo returns MJ to her mother. And outside Forest Hills, Queens, Peter finds Jessica at the warehouse. He suggests that she turn herself over to Nick Fury for her own benefit and safety, but Jessica declines. She's done with shadowy government figures of authority, and Peter asks what she's going to do now. And she tells him that she'd like to go to school with him. And he freaks out, and Jessica bursts out laughing that he actually fell for it. And then she wonders if that means that she would have also fallen for it. She tells Peter that she'll go somewhere else, try to start a new life of sorts, or try to help people, something. And Peter jokes that she can use his spider naming free of charge. Jessica asks how May is, and Peter tells her that she'll be fine. She just needs to stay in the hospital and recuperate. And he also notes that Mary Jane was saved by Reed Richards. And Jessica says that once they become adults, she hopes that they end up like Reed Richards. And Peter notes how weird this conversation is quickly becoming. Then she asks if he's ready for the most awkward hug in history, and the two embrace, and then she swings away. And the next day, Nick Fury arrives at the Triskelion to find Scorpion and the Gwen clone held in stasis and orders his doctors to get to work. And meanwhile, Peter overlooks his ruined house, and MJ and her mother find him. He tells Mrs. Watson that his aunt is going to be fine. She's just going to have to stay in the hospital for a while after the heart attack to, recuperate and get physical therapy and all that. And MJ tells him that Norman Osborn kidnapped her, but Spider-Man saved her and she fainted. And Peter tells her that they all got pretty lucky last night. And then MJ asks if she can speak alone to Peter, so her mom just walks a few paces away. And MJ says that her mom said it's okay for him to stay at their place, and he worries how they're going to afford to fix all of this. And she laughs and says that he'll just have to stay with her forever. And they touch heads and lean into one another as she looks into his eyes. Then they kiss. And they head off with MJ's mom back to the Watson residence, unaware that Kitty had arrived and saw the whole thing. And the next morning, MJ wakes up at 6 a.m. in a panic. She heads out into the house and finds Peter asleep. She goes to brush her teeth, and that's when her hand begins trembling. She drops her toothbrush, grabs hold of her wrist, and works on calming herself. Then she sees Kane's mangled face in the mirror and screams and falls against the toilet as Peter grabs her and calms her down. She cries into his shoulder as he comforts her. The end. Released in 2006, written by Brian Michael Bendis with art by Mark Bagley and Stuart Immonen, this is Ultimate Spider-Man Ultimate Nights. Ultimate nights, more spidery than ultimate days. The book actually begins about a week after the previous volume, Clone Saga. Peter and MJ meet with the damage control boys outside of Peter's residence, and he asks if he can just head inside and get his stuff. And Bulldozer goes over the official documents and asks if he's really Peter Parker. Peter assures him that he is, and that he actually lives there, and they just let him inside, so he gets his backpack, stuffs his suit inside, and wonders how he is going to break the news to Kitty Pryde. Then he puts it off. Sometime later, Peter and MJ meet May at the hospital as Peter tells them that he loves hospital food and doesn't get why people are so down on it. Right? I don't know if that's Brian Michael Bendis just making a joke about Peter Parker being someone who enjoys hospital food, but I heartily agree. I love hospital food. As someone who had to visit hospitals a lot as a child, not for me. I adore it. It's delicious. Anyway, May asks MJ how long she knew about Peter, and MJ reveals the whole time. May says that once she's dismissed from the hospital, they will have a lot to talk about. And she flips through the channels and complains about all the reality TV crap that's airing in the middle of the day as she winds up on a news channel reporting Spider-Mania is now sweeping New York. And also there's a ticker on the bottom of the screen noting that an anti-mutant legislation has passed in California. It doesn't have anything to do with it, but it's just a nice piece of world building, especially knowing where mutants kind of go into the future. Specifically, United we stand, divided we fall, whatever that sort of event is. Anyway, the news reports that a new Reuters poll says that Spider-Man has quickly become the most popular hero in New York, passing even Captain America. And later that day, Wilson Fisk is shown the same news report, and he asks why they're showing him this. And his lawyers explain to Fisk that he recently purchased a holding firm which owns a licensing company that owns a global licensing rights to Spider-Man. Fisk orders them to take any and all offers. It doesn't matter what. Flood the market and run him into the ground and make Fisk a lot of money. And a few days after that, and I should note here that where I think this generally takes place. If you're following along all of my Ultimate videos, you'll know it's fucking ridiculous to claim that all of Ultimate Spider-Man happens in the course of a year, which for some reason they decided upon. So in my headcanon, I generally follow it takes place over the course of his high school career, all 4 years or so. Maybe 4.5 years if you want to push it. So, I have put this past the Clone Saga and the vampire stories, that we covered previously. This is now into December of Peter's junior year. Probably mid to late December, with this part of the story taking place and going into Peter and MJ's winter break. And then we, work on into the new year as this volume progresses. And I feel that that really works because, well, look at how everyone on the street is dressed. It's clearly winter. It's winter break. Sure, we don't see what they do for Christmas, but that's not important. Anyway, MJ talks Peter into web-swinging her across New York, and they head to the Baxter Building. Johnny jokingly asks Peter if he's the real Peter or a clone of the world's most popular superhero. Peter sarcastically laughs as Reed stretches over and thanks them for coming by because he just needs to perform a couple more follow-up checks on Mary, and it should take about an hour. Peter asks if she's okay with him swinging by the bugle to, make sure he still has a job, and he heads off to find an ominous note taped to his computer. Peter heads into Jonah's office and finds him arguing with Ben Urich about an article.
Oh, look who's here! Hey, everybody, it's Mr. I can come into work whenever I want! I am fired! Mr. I don't work here anymore!
I'm fired?
Don't come in for days on end and you get fired! It's a life lesson, and I just taught it to you. Today, you are a man. Bye-bye!
Peter begins explaining that his house was attacked in Queens and his aunt had a heart attack. Jonah asks if this is the same aunt that once screamed at him over the phone. Peter confirms, and Jonah asks if she's okay. Peter tells him that she's still in the hospital, so he declares Peter not fired. Peter pushes his luck and asks if he could have a raise and some more hours, with his aunt in the hospital and all. And then Ben realizes that Peter was at the site of the attack in Queens. And Peter tells him, yeah, he saw it. It was Norman Osborn. He turned into a giant green goblin monster and fought some robots. Then Spider-Man showed up and beat him up. And Ben asks how he knows it was Norman. Peter says he kept shouting his name, which honestly isn't too far out of the realm of possibilities for Ultimate Norman Osborn. Peter tells them that his house got totally trashed, and Ben says that Jonah has the front page world exclusive Spider-Man vs. Green Goblin with eyewitness accounts and a Daily Bugle exclusive. Jonah turns and tells Peter that this is why he gets to keep his job. And Peter asks for a teeny tiny raise. Jonah agrees and also lets him work the weekend edition, in the hopes that Peter can use it to learn about the world of print and journalism a little more. And Peter tells Jonah that he's a really great guy, and he doesn't know why everyone says he's such a... Jonah glares at him, and Peter meekly thanks him and slinks out of the office with Ben. And sometime later, Wilson Fisk begins a new recruitment drive. They meet with some newfangled self-proclaimed supervillain in the parking garage of Fisk Tower, and Fisk asks what the guy does. The guy tells Fisk that he kills people, and Fisk demands that he kill his assistant. The man in the suit hesitates, and Fisk asks if he's undercover locally or federally. Then the tryout leaps into action until Fisk punches him into a car, rips off his mask to discover Shang-Chi. Kingpin launches him across the parking garage and orders his men to kill him, and they unload their guns but discover that he has escaped. And Fisk tells Mr. Rose to work harder on the screening process in the future. A few blocks away, Shang-Chi escapes to a rooftop where he meets Daredevil. And Daredevil informs him that he's been trying to find him for quite some time, because he's putting a team together, and he'd be perfect for the role. And back across town, Peter returns to the Baxter building as MJ finishes up, and Peter brings up the nightmares she's been having, and if MJ told them about him. And MJ explains, and she also brings up when she thought that she saw the clone that kidnapped her that one morning. And Reed and Dr. Storm conclude that it's PTSD. Ben tells her that it happened to him after they fought the Mole Man and his monsters a few years ago, and Sue clarifies that while it's not normal and that they should keep an eye out on it, there's no real cause for concern because it's apparent why it's happening to her. Cut to a big flash forward, a time jump if you will, to the beginning week of spring semester. MJ and Peter head into school as Peter tells Mary Jane that Johnny asked if they can help him find a date. Then a voice calls out to Peter. The voice of Matt Murdock, attorney at law. Peter tells MJ to head inside without him, and Matt asks if Peter recognizes his voice. Peter says that he does, and asks why the hell he's here. And he's also surprised that he's blind. And then he asks how he fucking found him. And Matt reminds him that the world thinks Spider-Man goes to school here. All he had to do was listen for him with his heightened senses. Matt then offers Peter to meet him on a rooftop across from St. Patrick's Cathedral tonight at 8 p.m. because they are going to kill the Kingpin. Then he walks away. And later in class, Jessica Jones, an executive producer of the school's television news network, performs a recruitment drive of her own. MJ and Peter pass notes about what happened, and she asks if he ever did call Kitty. Then Principal Andrew interrupts and apologizes because they have a new student joining the class a little late. And he tells the class that she's kind of well known, and he's sure she'll spark some discussion. But she has assured him that she is up to it, and he welcomes in Kitty Pryde. The teacher welcomes her and offers her an empty seat behind Mary Jane, who is completely frozen. And the students, Kong in particular, have an immediate fascination with her, and they ask her all kinds of questions about the X-Men, if she got kicked out, why she got kicked out. And Kitty tells them that she parted ways, and Flash asks what her powers actually are. The whole class wants to see. So Kitty phases her hand through a book. Then Liz snidely asks why she thinks she's better than them. And Kitty tells her she didn't fucking coin the term homo superior, and she believes in true equality. Liz argues and then sulks as Flash asks if she actually fought Magneto before. Then Jessica Jones begins filming her with her phone and asks if she's still dating Spider-Man. Kitty denies this. Flash asks if that's why she's here, because people think Spider-Man goes to school here, and Kong makes a note that she is single now, and more kids start getting into her face about mutants, Spider-Man, her powers, questions, prodding away at her, until Kitty finally flips out and runs through the wall. The whole class go crazy, and the teacher slams a book down and chastises them for how fucking rude they were to her. And later, out at the bleachers after school, MJ and Peter find Kitty. MJ feels terrible for her, and Peter tries to joke that she should since she stole Kitty's boyfriend. And MJ glares at him and orders Peter to get his ass up there and talk to her. And then Peter says goodbye since he has to head into the city to the hospital afterward and climbs up the bleachers. Peter begins off by saying that he's tried to call her, and Kitty tells him that he should have gotten his ass on a train and went to Xavier's to tell her in person instead of just going totally radio silent. Peter reminds her that he's been a bit busy recently and asks what happened at Xavier's. And she reveals that she and Jean went to the hospital to find he and May, and she tried to get Xavier to help Peter by making May forget about what happened. And when he didn't, she kinda lost it on him completely and got expelled. Peter awkwardly thanks her for trying to help the way she did, but notes that it happened, and Peter needed to take responsibility. Peter asks why she's here, of all places, and Kitty reveals that her mom moved them about 8 blocks away. She doesn't like it either. Then she reveals that she saw him and MJ kissing the morning after the attack. And Peter tells Kitty that he almost lost her, and she points out that he always loved her, even if he didn't admit it. Peter says that he made a big mistake, and Kitty interrupts and asks if he's talking about her, if she's the mistake. And then she phases away. And that night, Spider-Man swings through the city towards St. Patrick's Cathedral, and on a rooftop, he finds Doctor Strange, Iron Fist, Shang-Chi, Moon Knight, and Daredevil. Daredevil swivels and motions for Spidey to head on down, and he lands and greets everyone, and Daredevil explains that they all want the Kingpin for their own reasons. I would love to know, what is Strange's deal with the Kingpin? What is that about? Daredevil continues that he's brought them all here to form their own army against Fisk's and to bring him down. Spidey asks if he means killing him, and Daredevil tells him it's time that he grow up, because this is what has to be done. Spidey argues it wouldn't do anything because someone else would just take his place, and asks if everyone is actually comfortable with really killing Fisk. Strange notes that he's not, but he's okay if someone else does it. Spidey tells them that they're heroes, and that's supposed to represent something. Moon Knight tells them to grow up, and Shang-Chi points out that they've tried being good, and that has gotten them nowhere. Spider-Man tells them that if they kill Fisk, he'll go and tell Nick Fury on them, and he's not going to let them just murder a man. And Daredevil lumbers over Spider-Man and tells him he doesn't fight kids. Then everyone calms down, and Daredevil points out Shang-Chi's idea he had earlier to infiltrate the Fisk organization through Fisk's still ongoing search for new assassins/bodyguards. The only bad part about that is that Fisk recognizes them all, except for Moon Knight. And he's great at making new identities. Daredevil's down for that and proposes that Moon Knight gets in, gets close, and tips off the Knights where they can find and truly hurt Fisk by breaking the very backbone of his day-to-day operations until Fisk becomes so paranoid and sloppy that he ruins himself. And later that night, Danny Rand betrays the team to Kingpin. A few weeks later, a masked man called Ronan meets with Fisk for his recruitment. Ronan tells Fisk that he does whatever needs to be done. Fisk orders him to prove it, and he makes quick work of Fisk's bodyguards. Mr. Rose tells him that Ronan checks out as Mark Spector, an ex-Navy SEAL who was part of an early super soldier program gone wrong during the Gulf War. Then he worked at Roxxon until he went rogue. And Fisk is very pleased and instructs Ronan to prove himself by wrecking Spider-Man's life and bringing the web slinger back here. And meanwhile, life has been going pretty well for our cast at Midtown High. Mary Jane has joined up with the school's news network and is taking a very keen interest in journalism. She's actually working on a story about Spider-Man either being a student or faculty member. She takes to interviewing Flash Thompson about his experiences getting kidnapped, the new Principal Suntress, about his feelings on Spider-Man. The principal notes that the school and the district have conducted thorough investigations on all the faculty and school employees and found nothing. Then he says that the true damage hasn't been from Spider-Man. Instead, it's the media who keeps reporting and making stories on the rumors that Spider-Man goes here. And he also notes that the Spider-Man situation at Midtown is taken very seriously, and it even cost his predecessor his job. But he speaks out to Spider-Man directly, should he be watching this, and personally thanks him for all the heroic work he's done. He then reveals that Spider-Man once saved his mother from a runaway bus, and speaks to the camera directly and asks that if Spider-Man is watching, to keep doing what he is doing right now. Because the world desperately needs good people, and he would be so proud to hear that their school helped produce someone like him. All that he asks is that they keep it out of the halls, off school grounds, and away from the children that he is charged with. And Mary Jane Watson wraps up the Midtown High News Channel project. And the teacher in charge is very impressed that she did all this on her own. Jessica, in particular, is quite surprised, and the teacher officially welcomes her to the Student News Network. Later, she shows off her new camera to Peter and tells her all about the news network. He jokes that she used him to get extracurricular padding on her college transcripts, and she reminds him of all the shit she's gone through, and that she kinda deserves it. Then Kitty passes by, glances at them, and keeps walking. And Peter reminds her that they only have one more year of high school left. That's how many more times that this will happen, and the two will awkwardly run into Kitty in the halls. And then Liz comes out with a hard and fiery, maybe she should go back to where she came from. And MJ yells at her and demands that Liz stop spouting her mutant phobia around her, or else Mary will stop being her friend. And outside, Mark Spector hotwires a school bus, gets in costume, and floors it through the front of the fucking school. Then he clambers out of the bus and unloads a goddamn Uzi into the ceiling, demanding that Spider-Man appear before him. Kitty Pryde breaks into action, relishing that she finally has someplace to exert all the anger she's been holding in for the past few months, and Ronan unloads on her, but it phases right through Kitty as the sprinkler system begins drenching them. Ronan is slammed into the wall, grabs a fire extinguisher and sprays her and slams it into her head. Then Spider-Man arrives and loses control on the masked freak. And in Mark Spector's mind, a new personality overtakes Moon Knight. And Spidey goes to check on Kitty as Ronan escapes and begins firing tranq darts at him. Spider-Man manages to dodge almost all of them. And the police arrive and begin surrounding the school as Ronan escapes to the rooftop with Spider-Man's unconscious body and uses his webbing to swing away over the football field, where Mary Jane watches with her camera.
Spider-Man. 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 Wake up, oh Spider-Man. Ah, there you are. I thought you might have a concussion, but you are one tough little mutant boy. Are you a mutant? Everyone thinks you're a mutant. I was going to do a fingerprint search, but my friends in the FBI told me that Nick Fury had you flagged. And I don't want poor Mr. Fury to have to worry about you. At first I wondered, why can't I know your name? Why are you under Fury's protection? Then I thought, it doesn't matter what your name is, or where you live, or why, or how, or what. All that matters is that you are Spider-Man. Naive little Spider-Man, with your little agenda to fix the world. It's very annoying and very immature, and getting you nowhere. And now I know where to find you the next time you come around here. I know exactly where you are. So if you come after me, I'll blow up that school of yours. Maybe I'll send some people to Westchester and firebomb that mutant school. Burn your little girlfriend. Try to hurt me, and I hurt you back. But if I have you here tied up and helpless, a gun to your head, my fists, then why don't I just kill you now and get it over with? Well, this is why. This Spider-Man action figure just had the prototypes made up because I found out that I own the merchandising rights to your likeness. The movie made $500 million, and it looks like you have to give yourself your own haircuts. But as your popularity grows, so does the value of your likeness. So no matter how much of a pain that you think you are to me, it's nothing compared to how much I'll make off of you just being you. I own you. So I want you to go back to your little gang of vigilante knights and tell them to cut it out. Your pal, Matt Murdock the Daredevil, he works for me. He always has. He's my lawyer, and I sent him to screw you idiots up so I can prove you're playing a game whose rules I invented. Now go tell the rest of your idiot friends to find another hobby! And if you don't, the nostalgia market is big. So after I kill you, there will be an initial surge in merchandising profits. But you're hardly Jimi Hendrix, so I would rather keep you around. Any fat jokes you want to toss my way before we're done? That's what I thought.
And elsewhere, in a court, a case is dismissed as Foggy congratulates Matt on another job well done. And Matt overhears a nearby police officer's radio reporting on a masked vigilante attacking Midtown High, apparently involving Spider-Man. At sunset, Daredevil breaks into Fisk Tower and makes his way into Kingpin's empty office, and he finds water on the desk. And then he contacts the Sanctum Sanctorum, where Wong picks up the phone. Wong delivers it to Steven as he's meditating, and alerts him that it is urgent. Shortly after, Stephen Strange teleports into Kingpin's office, and Daredevil tells him that the Spider-Man kid is in trouble. Strange gets nervous about breaking and entering. Seriously, why is Strange a part of this? In-universe. Why? What did Kingpin do to him to lead to this? If anyone has any suggestions, please leave them in the comments, because I would love to know. Daredevil tells him to knock off the bullshit before Kingpin tortures and kills a teenage boy, so Strange casts a spell that creates a vision of the previous events that leads them on a magical trail. Strange wonders if Moon Knight actually betrayed them. Daredevil has his doubts, but they make their way through the building, down the elevator shaft, and eventually into a large sealed door at the basement. And inside they find a stool, a crate, and dried blood. Strange tells Daredevil that Kingpin beat Moon Knight, and then they left and drove away, and they left Spider-Man in the room. Daredevil tells Strange to assemble the others, and a few hours later, the Knights all meet up and try to figure out what to do now that two of their members are missing. Then Daredevil's webbed in the face and Spider-Man attacks him. He reveals to the others that Daredevil sold them out. Daredevil assures him he did no such thing, and Spidey tells him that he learned from Fisk that Murdock is his lawyer. Daredevil panics that Fisk knows who he is, and asks Spider-Man if it's true, and seconds later, the law offices of Nelson and Murdock explodes. He assures the group that it was closed for the night and no one was inside. And then he tells Spider-Man that Fisk killed his father, all because he wouldn't throw a boxing match. And he continues that he wants to bring Fisk to justice, because that's the only revenge that will have any meaning. Because Fisk doesn't believe in justice or the law, or that he can be punished. And Daredevil thought about what Spider-Man said since their last meeting. Spider-Man tells him that Fisk found out who Daredevil was because someone told him. And Shang-Chi suggests that it must have been Moon Knight. Then Daredevil hears Danny Rand's rapid heartbeat, and he spins around to demand to know what Danny told him. And outside the city, Mark Spector is dragged out of a van, stood before the river, and shot in the head. As Daredevil beats the shit out of Danny Rand and demands to know why he betrayed them. And Danny confesses that Fisk found out about his daughter, Colleen. his men went to her daycare and pinned a note on her for him to find when he picked her up. And he had to betray them to keep her safe, and he doesn't want to go back to jail. He actually wants to be with his family and support them. Daredevil shouts that Moon Knight's death is Danny's fault, and all of this is on him. And Shang-Chi silently walks away in disbelief as Danny tries to call out to his old friend. A few hours later, Danny meets Kingpin in his penthouse, revealing everything that happened, and how Daredevil gave him another chance. Kingpin laughs at this, saying that he would have just killed him. Then Danny reveals that he was actually sent here to distract Fisk, and to send a message that he took something away from Matt Murdock, and now Matt Murdock is going to take something away from him. Fisk bashes out of his office and marches down the hall to his bedroom, where he finds Daredevil crouching in the dark around Fisk's comatose wife, Vanessa. And meanwhile, Mark Spector wakes up, gasping for air, and sets off into the night. But back in New York City, Wilson Fisk pleads with Daredevil to stop what he's doing, to let her go. Daredevil growls that Fisk pushed him here. He would have been fine just settling this in the court of law, but not after Fisk found out his identity. He notes that he can snap her neck within an instant, and Fisk weakly tells him that he believes him and asks how they can figure this all out. Then Spider-Man arrives and tells Daredevil to stand down. Fisk watches silently as the two argue, and Daredevil tells Spider-Man that they can't go back now. Fisk knows all about them, about all of them. They can't let him get away or else he's going to start killing people that they care for. Spidey convinces him to not kill a helpless sick woman because she's not a part of this. And Spidey tells him that when someone close to him was murdered, he had the chance to kill the guy, and he easily could have. But he didn't, because once something like that happens, it cannot be taken back. Daredevil bites back that this is the only thing Fisk will understand. But Fisk pleads with him to not do it, and he'll do anything to save Vanessa's life. Daredevil thinks about it for a moment, and first orders him to give himself up, then realizes that's not gonna work. So he orders him to leave the country, and that he has until midnight tomorrow, or else Daredevil is going to find Vanessa's neck and fucking snap it. And Spider-Man adds on that if anything happens to Daredevil or any of the other Knights, he'll sick Nick Fury on him. And Fisk knows he can do it, too. The next morning, Captain Frank Quaid discusses some things with a cop as two strange characters walk behind them, and Ronan appears at the door trailing blood. He explains who he is, and that Wilson Fisk tried to kill him. And that night, as the sun sets and preparations have been made to leave the country with Vanessa, Fisk explodes in anger in his limousine as they drive to an airstrip outside of New York. He orders Mr. Rose to have Murdock killed once he's out of the country, to break Doctor Strange's hands, and have Midtown High blown up while class is in session. And as they arrive to his private jet, Fisk reminds Rose to hire the best there is to do these jobs, or else he'll regret it. And as he walks across the tarmac, a legion of SWAT and NYPD arrive, led by Frank Quaid, who arrests Wilson Fisk for the attempted murder of Stephen Grant, a.k.a. Mark Spector, a.k.a. Moon Knight, a.k.a. Ronan, a.k.a. that little redheaded girl. And that night turns into the following weeks, turns into the following months, as the official arrest of Wilson Fisk, New York's kingpin of crime, is covered by every news outlet. Fisk was identified by Stephen Grant in a lineup and arrested on numerous counts of attempted murder, battery, assault, extortion, racketeering. He is held in jail, denied bail, and this also marks the first time in the history of New York that a costume hero has come forward and revealed their secret identity. And a few weeks later, after both the recovery of Aunt May and their house, the Parkers are finally able to move back in after staying with the Watsons. Peter and May head inside and take a gander at the brand new and improved home, complete with new furnishings, appliances, and even stocked with food.
So, we should finally talk? So, you're Spider-Man.
Yep.
A spider bit you and gave you spider powers.
Yeah, well, it was a genetically altered spider.
Oh, yeah, that spider from the field trip when we had to go to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't figure this out at the hospital.
Norman Osborn made some wacky drug and put it in a spider, and then it bit me.
It's always something with Norman Osborn.
Yep. Then he tried to do it to himself. And he turned into a green goblin and turned Harry into this orange goblin monster thing.
Oh my god, is that why he's been in our lives?
Yes!
You should have told me.
Well, by the time I knew, he was taken away.
Did you have to fight him?
Yeah, both of them. And Norman became, like, obsessed with me.
And you fight.
Well,
Beat people up?
yeah, but only bad people.
Still, the violence.
There's a lot of bad people.
You know you have to finish high school. It's important.
I know! I'm practically there!
And after that, you'll be an adult, so it's up to you.
I'm going to go to college and study genetic and chemical engineering, probably get a doctorate in both fields.
All while being Spider-Man?
Well, I kinda have to.
Why? Why do you have to?
Because with great power comes great responsibility.
Ben used to say that. He said it was something he and your father had been taught.
I know. He said that to me. It was the last thing he said to me.
Oh, honey.
Aunt May, it's my fault that Uncle Ben died. The guy who killed him, I saw him robbing someone earlier that day, and I didn't stop him, and he was right there, and I let him go. And then he killed Uncle Ben, and I could have stopped him.
That's why you're Spider-Man? Because you think it's your fault Uncle Ben was killed.
I could have stopped him.
No, a man killed Ben. He pulled the trigger, not you.
No, you don't understand. I was right there. He was right in front of me. I just can't help feeling it, and I do what I do because I have to. Because, but I know. I think Uncle Ben would be proud of me, and I just.
He would. Okay. How do you find these people you beat up, which I don't approve of, by the way? And where does the costume come from? Because I know you can't sew. Or, well, I suppose I really don't. Oh, and how do you shoot the web things?
I mean, originally I just bought the costume to make money wrestling.
What?
I thought it was a good idea. But, yeah, MJ made me a new one.
Well, how does she handle it?
We break up, we get back together.
What?
Norman Osborn threw her off a bridge.
What?
This is why I never told you. Because of the danger it puts you in. And when I finally did, you keeled over.
I keeled over because your father and Gwen Stacy had just come back from the dead and people were shooting at the house.
But still, those weren't really them, by the way.
You don't know this, but I was kind of obsessed with why Spider-Man was so close to our lives. In this neighborhood, when Ben died, at your school. And now I know. And it's unbelievable how careless you are.
To prove how careful he actually is, Peter tells her about an adventure he went on just today. Peter tells her that something had happened at Roxxon Industries, and he followed the police across the city to a Roxxon lab. He found a massive high-tech laboratory with a man inside whose body was chalk white and had floating black spots wisping around it. But Spider-Man was eventually victorious. Peter wonders how and why all of this is happening so fast, so suddenly. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Goblins, Punishers, Mutants, Daredevils, Electros. Just a few years ago, there were no super people, and now there's like 100, and they keep popping up more and more every day. Peter wonders why it's happening, and then he makes a Ghostbusters reference, wondering if it means something bigger. May asks what it could be, but Peter has no answers. And she just tells him that she doesn't want him to get hurt. May says that it's not going to be easy turning on the TV and seeing him out there in trouble or hearing all the bad things that people say about him. And Peter tells her that the most important thing is that no one can know. And Peter jokes that on her 10th wedding anniversary, she can finally tell her new boyfriend Miles Warren. Peter explains that he was trying to spare her from all of this, and that if she doesn't want this in her life, he'll leave. May laughs and leans back and asks where he's gonna go, and she couldn't ever imagine that he would grow up to be this good of a person. She compares him to the best parts of his mother, his father, Uncle Ben, all rolled into one. And Peter adds that he's just as much part May as well. And May begins to tear up and tells him that he is staying right here. And he's going to grow up right here because she does not want to miss a minute of it. And they hug. The end.